Chapter 828. In the sky above the heaven-mending secret realm, Zhiming led the four most powerful people in the world. With one sword strike, the sky lost its color. The sword of extreme Tao was stunning. Sword light flashed past, splitting heaven and earth apart. An enormous spatial ravine appeared. Chaotic streams surged, and crazy mists surged like waves. After the sword started the battle, the heaven-mending pavilion master and 10 other supreme-level experts appeared. They stood in the air and looked at the 5 people in front of them with gloomy expressions. At the beginning of the battle, the atmosphere was tense. Shinji waved his hand, and purple light flashed. The purple clouds fell, and the incomparably luxurious divine sword was surrounded by purple clouds. The image of an emperor was revealed. At the side, the Phoenix Cry sword appeared in Lin Yuzhen's hand as well. Amidst the rampaging lightning, the Phoenix Cry was unsheathed, and a powerful aura swept out. Zhiming took the lead, and the 3 swords were connected. Although there were only 3 of them, the whole Butian secret realm shook. Sword chi coiled around, and the world dimmed. At the front, the heaven-mending pavilion master and the 10 heaven-mending sect elders all had heavy expressions on their faces. These people in front of them clearly came prepared. Heaven-mending pavilion would most likely have a bloody battle today. Leave this Butian pavilion master to me. Lin Yuzhen stepped forward and said. Then leave these 10 people to me and Baiyue. Shinji said calmly as he glanced at the 10 supreme masters behind Butian pavilion master. Many thanks. Ningchen replied. His figure flashed as he plunged downwards. You want to leave? In your dreams. The heaven-mending pavilion master's face turned cold. He stomped his feet and instantly moved to block the former. Pavilion master, your opponent is this king. As she spoke, Lin Yuzhen stepped out from the void. She slashed the air with her sword, blocking the path ahead. Seizing the opportunity, Ning Chun and the Dawn Moon Tower's mistress flew down, searching for their target. Prince Qi, you dare to oppose my Butian pavilion? The road ahead was blocked. The heaven-mending pavilion master's expression became even more unsightly as he coldly spoke. Perhaps there are things in this world that this king does not dare to do, but it definitely does not include provoking your heaven-mending pavilion. Lin Yuzhen lightly said. You're courting death. Killing intent erupted from the heaven-mending pavilion master's face. He stomped in the air and slapped towards the person in front of him. On the other side, Butian's 10 grand elders moved as well. Powerful auras surged and blasted at the 2 people blocking their way. Shinji waved his hand, and the purple cloud was unsheathed. Purple light surged, and wave after wave of pressure spread out. The force was so strong that it was shocking. He was a true supreme expert at the peak of the true realm, a powerful existence who was only one step away from the 4th realm. When he attacked, the wind and clouds howled. Butian's 10 grand elders arrived. With a boom, they collided with the sword waves. Instantly, boundless raging waves roared and surged, destroying thousands of miles of space. Behind Shinji, Reverend Baiyu stood quietly and did not show any signs of attacking. 10 against 1, Shinji's body shone with purple light as he swung the purple cloud divine sword. Pieces of space crumbled and were restored. After a dozen or so moves, the 10 Grand Supremes of Skymender were all shocked. They were unable to gain the upper hand in terms of offense and defense. Not far away, Lin Yuzhen blocked the heaven-mending pavilion master by herself. The battle was equally intense. Both of them were at the pinnacle of the human realm. They knew that the other party's strength was immeasurable. Their attacks were majestic and unrestrained, and their divine might was shocking. Phoenix dances 9 heavens. After exchanging a few moves, everyone knew that Lin Yuzhen's body was like a dancing phoenix. Her sword was like the heavens, shocking the world. She could shake the heavens, and her attacks multiplied. The heaven-mending pavilion master's expression became serious. The true yuan around his body continued to rise. His palms rose and fell, shaking heaven and earth. It was difficult for the peak of the world to coexist. The two's figures intertwined, and their moves caused the smoke of war between heaven and earth. They rumbled and shook the 9 heavens. After recovering her body, Lin Yuzhen's power was even greater than before. Her every move was like 10,000 techniques. The 2 battles had just begun, and the heat was already at its peak. Below, Ningchen and the Dawn Moon House Master entered the heaven-mending pavilion. Powerful auras greeted them one after another. Hundreds of them blocked their path. Ninth disciple of Mo Gate, you really have guts. You actually took the initiative to come to my heaven-mending pavilion to die. In front of everyone, heaven-mending Martial Chief Qi Wenju and Right Enforcer Jiang Yin appeared. They looked at the red-clothed young man and coldly said, "Give me 10 breaths of time." The Dawn Moon House Master indifferently said. A wooden box appeared in front of her, and within the dazzling silver light, a divine spear appeared. A powerful aura shook the area, and the yellow springs opened the way. Silver light flashed, and the imposing aura was incomparably vigorous. Wherever the yellow springs passed, space rapidly collapsed, and the airflow exploded. It was abnormally ear-piercing. Qi Wenju and Jiang Yun's expressions slightly changed. They worked together to shake the yellow springs, and with a loud sound, they were forced back several steps. After one move, the yellow springs in the Dawn Moon House Master's hand once again shone with brilliance. With a turn of its sharp edge, it swept away 1,000 soldiers. A muffled groan sounded. The heaven-mending seniors blocking the way were unable to bear the might of the yellow springs and were all dyed red. Qi Wenju and Jiang Yun's palms arrived soon after. The Dawn Moon House Master's body moved, and her spinning spear condensed frost. Cold air spread out, and within a range of 1,000 zhang, the heaven and earth were instantly frozen. 100 burials of frost heaven. With a light shout, the frozen heaven and earth collapsed. The heaven-mending seniors only felt a tearing pain all over their bodies. The instant the heaven and earth collapsed, the surrounding natural laws went crazy and attacked everyone. Snowflakes and blood splattered everywhere in the collapsing space. More than 100 heaven-mending experts vomited blood and were heavily injured. Qi Wenju and Jiang Yin were also affected. Their bodies staggered, and their auras became unstable. Let's go. After 10 breaths, the Dawn Moon House Master's spear pierced through the scattered blood and bones, and a path appeared in front of them. Ningchen nodded. His figure flashed, and a crack appeared in the heaven and earth. Before they could react, Hongyi had already broken out of the encirclement. In the blink of an eye, she was already far away. It was too late to chase after her. In the battle, the Dawn Moon House Master looked at the 2 heaven-mending experts in front of her. She held her spear horizontally and blocked the way. After breaking through several obstacles, Ningchen, who had already entered the depths of the heaven-mending pavilion, quickly moved forward. Suddenly, he stopped and looked around with a serious expression. Between the heaven and earth, a dim light shone everywhere. Waves of abnormally powerful auras awakened, as if they did not belong to the human world, and came from the distant hell. It's here. Ningchen squinted his eyes. What was supposed to come had finally come. Every inheritance had its own hidden trump card that could not be exposed. This was also the most powerful trump card of every inheritance. Boom! Lightning descended from the heavens. The previously clear sky immediately darkened. It was as if the heavens felt this power that should not be left in the human world, and wanted to erase it. Within the rumbling, the earth split open, and 4 coffins appeared. Waves of gloomy and cold auras spread out, turning into a barrier that blocked the lightning that descended from the heavens. In the next moment, the coffins opened, and 4 elders wearing ancient clothing walked out. They looked at the young man in the middle, and with a single word, they attacked to kill him. For experts at the peak of the true realm, every single one of them was not inferior to experts like the heaven-mending pavilion master and Prince Qi. Their auras were incomparably majestic, but they also carried an indescribable aura of death. Old monsters with half a foot in the underworld should not be left in the human world. The 4 people attacked. Ningchen clenched his left hand, and the Zhu Xian sword appeared. The 2 swords rotated, and Phoenix Origin and Baleful Qi swirled. Yin and Yang opened the formation, and a Tai Chi diagram rose into the sky. 4 against 1. The moment they entered the formation, red and gray lights twisted. The Tai Chi diagram rapidly rotated, and the formless power dissipated the attacks of the 4 experts. Divine transformation. With the assistance of the 4 symbols, the phoenix returned to its ancestral state. Ningchen took a step forward, and the dust around his body surged. His long black hair immediately turned blood red and danced in the wind. It was extremely glaring. Chapter 829. Within the heaven-mending secret realm, the sounds of battle filled the battlefield. The 4 strongest experts of the present age all displayed their might as they challenged the heaven-mending pavilion. The purple cloud divine sword was shrouded in purple chi. It was unstoppable for hundreds of eras. Its movements were like flowing water. The sword shook the 9 provinces. The 10 heaven-mending grand elders were still completely suppressed. On the other side, Lin Yuzhen blocked the heaven-mending pavilion master by herself. The sound of a phoenix shocked the world. Her incomparably elegant movements and techniques did not have the slightest flaw. Even someone as strong as the heaven-mending pavilion master, the master of a sect, could not break free. On the ground, the Dawn Moon House master used the yellow spring to mercilessly open the path to hell. Almost half of the 100 heaven-mending sovereigns were killed in the blink of an eye. Qi Wenju and Jiang Yun worked together, but they were all injured. They could not block the might of the yellow spring. The 3 strongest experts blocked most of the heaven-mending pavilion's forces, creating an opportunity for knowing destiny. In the depths of the heaven-mending pavilion, Ningchen's advancing footsteps stopped. 4 elders in ancient clothes walked out from their coffins. Their bodies emitted a rotten aura as they took half a step into the yellow spring. The 4 peak True Realm experts attacked together. Ningchen's Zhu Xian and Taishang appeared at the same time. The yin-yang formation was activated, and the Taiji transformed into power. With the formation as the foundation, this was a battle technique with both offense and defense. The attacks of the 4 venerables seemed to have fallen into a quagmire. Their might was greatly reduced. Entering the divine realm, the yin-yang formation was activated. Ningchen's body was surrounded by 2 colored brilliance. Taisher and Zhu Xian slashed out. The formation rotated rapidly, supporting the might of the 2 swords. Phoenix flames swirled in the sky, and a murderous aura was fatal. 2 powerful palms arrived. Taisher and Ningchen's hand spun. With a clang, it blocked the attacks of the 2 venerables. They faced each other head-on. Furious currents surged. Within the yin-yang formation, dazzling brilliance shook. The remaining shockwaves roared and surged. They were transferred to the heaven and earth by the formation. Mountains sank and the earth fell. Palaces collapsed one after another. After one wave of attacks, another wave followed. The other 2 elders in ancient clothes attacked from the left and right. Their powerful palms shocked the sun and moon. Sword technique nothing. The 2 swords spun. The 2 swords activated the formation's power to block the 2 venerables' palms. The entire heaven-mending secret realm's great earth began to rumble and tremble, unable to endure the might of the 2 extreme martial powers. Sword style, air severing. Defending 2, attacking 1. Ningchen condensed his vital energy. Evil chi surged on the fairy slaying sword. The incomparably sharp celestial sword cut open the void, and slashed towards the nearest old man in ancient clothing. The immortal might was unparalleled, and baleful energy filled the air. The old man in ancient clothes focused his energy on his palm, blocking the immortal sword with his strength. With a muffled groan, the old man took half a step back. His cloudy eyes looked at the young man in front of him with surprise. His arm gradually cracked apart as time nibbled away at it. A strange power of laws circulated around him, speeding up the passage of time. Time seal. The old man in traditional robes spoke for the first time in a hoarse voice. The other 3 elders also stopped and stood in different positions. Their eyes narrowed slightly. To them, time was their greatest enemy. They were people who already had 1 foot in the grave, so they couldn't be corroded by time. For the sake of protecting heaven-mending pavilion, you have worked so hard. This humble one admires you. However, our positions are different, so I can only offend you. As soon as he finished speaking, the red light around Ningchen's body was extremely bright. The Zhu Xian resonated. Above the 2 swords, 2 colors of brilliance shot into the sky, stirring up the wind and clouds. It was earth-shattering. Sword technique, prairie blaze. A sword set the prairie ablaze. The great formation gathered power, an endless phoenix flame soared. The flames condensed time, turning the entire battlefield into a sea of flames. The four old men in ancient clothes focused their eyes. Their true essence linked together, and under the perilous waves of true essence, they resisted the divine flames. The divine flames raged. Under the influence of the true essence, it was difficult for them to approach. However, time left no traces, and they were unable to resist it. The four people's faces immediately became even older. Competing with the azure ocean, the four of them took half a step back. Waves surged around their bodies. With the four of them working together, their bodies became even stronger. The formation trembled. Under the impact of the four people's power, it violently swayed and showed signs of instability. After a moment of deadlock, the battle erupted with power. The dual polarity formation was broken, and the undercurrent trembled. The four old men in ancient clothes all flew out and vomited blood when they landed. At the center of the aftermath, a drop of blood silently dripped down from the corner of Ning Chen's mouth and landed in front of him. Facing four old monsters who were comparable to the most powerful experts of the present age, even someone as strong as Ning Chen found it difficult to completely withstand the aftermath of the battle. It was the first time he was dyed red. The dual polarity formation was broken, and the balance between yin and yang collapsed. Ning Chen lightly shouted, and the taisher in his hand swept out, absorbing the aftermath of the great formation. Red radiance rushed into the sky, and the sword light cut open the curtain of the sky and descended from above. The extreme heaven sword's might was boundless and unrestrained. The heaven and earth sensed it, and the sound of countless chains swayed, echoing the extreme heaven sword. In the next moment, the sword light descended into the mortal world. The world-destroying aura shook the entire heaven-mending secret realm. Time curled around it, and it almost solidified. Above the void, the expression of the heaven-mending pavilion master, who had been stopped by Prince Qi, changed greatly. He looked down at the battle below, and shock appeared on his face. Being distracted in battle, "Are you looking down on me, pavilion master?" As he spoke, lightning flashed. Lin Yuzhen's figure swept over, and the cry of a phoenix waved past. Her killing intent was not concealed in the slightest. The heaven-mending pavilion master came back to his senses. He flipped his palm to block the sword. With a bang, he continuously retreated several steps. On the other side, Shen Ji's sword shook off the 5 Taishang who were close to him. His eyes looked at the battle in the distance, and a strange expression flashed through his eyes. The 9th disciple of Maha's sect had indeed become even more terrifying. How far was he from that crucial step? At the same time, the heaven-mending martial chief and the right protector joined hands to attack. The Dawn Moon House master forced the two of them back with a palm. The underworld divine spear stabbed into the ground, and a silver light spread out. The heaven-mending venerables were unable to bear the heavenly might, and their bodies exploded. Blood and bones rained down like rain. Knowing destiny, this house master will wait for the day you break through the destiny of heaven. With the help of the 3 sides, the extreme heaven sword descended from the sky at the most crucial moment of the battle. The expressions of the 4 old men in ancient clothes were abnormally grave. The true qi around their bodies rose, and with a flip of their palms, they joined hands to block the extreme martial sword. With a bang, the sword light descended, and the ground beneath the 4 people cracked, sinking several zhang. With the support of time, the extreme heaven sword suppressed the 4 people. With a rumbling sound, the 4 people's bodies began to crack. The sword light streaked across one after another, bringing with it a waterfall of blood. Seeing this, Ning Chen's figure flashed, and he arrived in front of them in a flash. With a slash of his sword, 2 heads flew up, and blood spurted out like a tide. Without the 2 people's resistance, the extreme heaven sword fell. The 2 old men had to bear the sword's might. Immediately, blood dyed their bodies, and they looked extremely miserable. The moment you chose to appear, the ending was already decided. Go on your way in peace. Ning Chen moved, and with extreme speed, the sword light had already passed. The underworld path returned, welcoming the people who should have arrived long ago. Pung, pung, the 4 figures fell one after another, smashing into the sky. In the passage of time, no one could escape forever. In the end, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. 4 venerables died in battle. In the heaven-mending secret realm, the powerful cultivators were all shocked, unable to believe what was happening in front of them. In the current world, if the 4th realm did not appear, the peak of the true realm was the strongest in the world. Who would have thought that the 4 venerables of the previous generation would all die in battle? 1. At this moment, in the depths of the heaven-mending secret realm, tens of thousands of rays of light shone. A celestial pagoda, shining with green light, rose up. The pagoda was 9 inches tall, and there were 9 floors in total. On each floor, layers of runes shone with dazzling brilliance, and it was so heavy that it made it difficult for people to breathe. Linglong Pagoda. Feeling the terrifying aura from the depths of the heaven-mending pavilion, Shinji Linyushin and the Dawn Moon Tower's master all looked over at the same time. When they saw the 9-floor celestial pagoda appear in the rays of light, their expressions all froze. On the ground, Ningchen looked at the celestial pagoda that rose into the sky, and his eyes narrowed slightly. With the appearance of the celestial pagoda, water vapor within the heaven-mending pavilion immediately became abundant. After a moment, a huge waterfall fell down like a heavenly river. The waterfall that weighed more than 10,000 pounds pressed down on the 5 intruders. In the sky, Shinji's eyes narrowed, and the purple cloud godly sword slashed down. With a pung sound, the waterfall in front of him was dispersed. On the other side, Lin Yuzhen also circulated her true yuan, and the cry of a phoenix was waved, and the sword split open the heavenly waterfall. The inheritance of the ancients is truly incomparable to a normal sect. In the 3rd battle, the Dawn Moon Tower's master softly muttered. Her cultivation erupted, and the air around her stirred, blocking the heavenly waterfall. In the final battle, in the center of the Linglong Celestial Pagoda's killing intent, Ning Chen's eyes were like stars. The phoenix essence of his 2 swords rose, and the fire phoenix appeared, spreading its wings and rushing into the 9 heavens. Water and fire, the celestial pagoda hummed, and the phoenix cried. Drip drip. The sound of blood dripping down was so faint that it was hard to detect. Ning Chen's sword-wielding hands overflowed with blood. After receiving most of the immortal might, he suffered a backlash. In the sky, the phoenix faced the sky and let out a final cry. It loudly dispersed the waterfall and directly crashed into the celestial pagoda in the sky. In the world shaking, the phoenix scattered. On top of the celestial pagoda, layers of symbols flickered, and its aura fluctuated. In the blink of an eye, Ning Chen's figure flashed past, and the execution of immortals split open the heavens. Bloody light streaked across the horizon, and a bloody scar appeared on the heaven and earth. With a loud rumble, the celestial pagoda fell. The 9-inch-tall celestial pagoda was like 10,000 mountains. The moment it smashed into the ground, the earth within 1,000 li caved in. Dust and sand rolled about, and waves swept across. The heaven-mending pavilion that suffered a great calamity was in a complete mess. Countless halls were destroyed, and it was a scene of desolation. Ningchen walked forward, and did not pay attention to his blood-soaked arms. His cold eyes looked towards the depths of the heaven-mending pavilion. If they still had some hidden power, it was about time for them to come out. The silent cold wind blew up the blood-soaked dust. The atmosphere immediately became strange. The sounds of battle in the distance did not stop, and this place was so quiet that it made people's hearts palpitate. Boom boom. It sounded like the sound of drums, but also like the sound of footsteps. In the depths of the heaven-mending pavilion, an indescribable aura appeared. In the blink of an eye, the dust disappeared, and the shattered halls returned to their original positions. A middle-aged man in green clothes walked out. His face was ordinary, and the aura around him was almost undetectable. He was just like an ordinary mortal. Let's stop fighting. His voice was casual and did not carry a trace of threat. However, the moment he spoke, the entire world became quiet, and no other sound could be heard. In the 3 battles, Shinji Linyushin and the Dawn Moon Tower Master felt the power of laws change around them at the same time. The moment they made their moves, it was as if they had fallen into a swamp, and it was difficult for them to move. He finally came out. The Dawn Moon Tower Master looked at the man in green clothes in front of her, and said seriously. In the sky, Shinji's eyes flashed with brilliance. Was this heaven-mending pavilion's final trump card? The Reverend Moon Tower Master took a step forward, and a strange expression appeared on her beautiful face. She said, "Are you sure? Is he the 4th level?" "I'm not sure yet. We'll know after we fight," Shinji said calmly. His tone changed and he continued, "However, we have to be mentally prepared. If this person is really the 4th level, it will be very difficult for us to escape unscathed today." In the center of the battle, Ningchen looked at the man in green clothes who was slowly walking towards him. His expression also became serious. He waved his left hand, and a red light filled the sky. Chapter 830. In the heaven-mending mystery realm, the situation suddenly changed. The man in green walked out, and the entire battlefield became quiet. An unprecedented pressure stepped on the hearts of Ningchen and the others. Inside the heaven-mending secret realm, the ground shook slightly as if it couldn't bear this power that surpassed the mortal world. "I am Qi Kuanglan." His voice was so casual and calm, but it was as heavy as a mountain, making it difficult for people to breathe. Dust rose without wind, adding to the austere atmosphere. In the 3 battles, Shinji, Lin Yuzhen, and the Dawn Moon Tower Mistress had repelled their opponents. They glanced at the red-robed young man from the corner of their eyes, and a trace of worry flashed across their faces. For the time being, they couldn't get away to help. Could Ningchen stop this person? One-on-one, fair and just. There is no victor, only life and death. Ningchen waved his hand and pressed down on the celestial trapping sword. His entire body glowed with red light as he fully activated his martial arts, stirring up the wind and clouds. "All right, I'll allow you." Qi Kuanglan raised his hand and replied calmly, "Drink." With a loud shout, Feng Yuan rushed into the sky. The hair on Ningchen's head was shattered, and his blood-red hair danced in the wind. Wave after wave of energy rolled out, shaking the heaven and earth. Since his rebirth, this was the first time he had gathered all of his power. Sword light after sword light flew out, crisscrossing the heaven and earth, causing the universe to change color. The figure that disappeared in an instant reappeared, and the battle had already begun. With a loud bang, the immortal slaying slash fell. The 2 extreme powers clashed, and the ground within 100 miles cracked, sinking several feet into the ground. Close at hand, the sword light danced like lightning, exchanging blows with extreme speed, exchanging blows with extreme force. "I'm surprised that there's a young expert like you in the human world." The palm and the sword exchanged dozens of moves. Flames of war soared into the sky as vast energy surged. The sword light was as dazzling as thunder. Wherever the aftershock passed, the laws were destroyed and all things ceased to exist. The knowing destiny state cultivator had reached an unprecedented level of combat power. His body moved like lightning, and his sword moved like a bolt of lightning. Before anyone could see his figure clearly, he brandished his sword. Qi Kuanglan didn't say a word, but his admiration was evident in his brows. He raised his cultivation once more, and with a flip of his palm, vast and mighty waves spread out for thousands of kilometers. He no longer held back, and went all out to deal with the stunning young man before him. To the east of the sea, Ningchen's palm was extremely powerful, and a phoenix shadow appeared at an extremely fast speed. Blood spilled out from the corner of his mouth. He took 100 steps back and stabbed his sword into the ground, stabilizing his body. Blood splattered onto the ground as the silhouette moved again. His sword drew a line between life and death. 3 feet in front of the swordsman was a domain that absolutely could not be violated. The sword light was like thunder, shining like the stars in the sky. The thunderous force was fast and powerful. Qi Kuanglan flipped his palm to catch the sword. In an instant, the sword light left as soon as it touched his palm. The next strike was powerful enough to split the heavens. Oh! A strange look flashed in Qi Kuanglan's eyes. His figure shifted to the side, evading the sword light. With a flip of his palm, 10,000 waves surged into the sky. Bang! Ningchen swung his sword, and the red light that filled the sky gathered on the Zhu Xian sword. With a swing of the sword, he forcefully took on the raging waves. Ningchen's right arm was bleeding profusely. The blood dripped down along with the immortal sword and landed on the ground. It was a glaring sight. You are still young. In another 100 years, you might be able to surpass me, but right now, you are still not my opponent. Qi Huanglan looked at the young man in front of him and calmly said, "Admit defeat. Enter my heaven-mending pavilion, and I will spare your life." "No need." Ning Chun propped himself up with the help of his sword. Red light flickered around his body as he suppressed his injuries. He looked at the person in front of him and said, "Come again." Stubborn. Qi Huanglan's expression gradually sank. He took a step forward and instantly rushed forward. His palm was as heavy as a raging wave as it slammed toward the former. The Zhu Xian sword swept across and blocked vast energy. With a world-shaking tremor, a black-clothed demonic figure appeared behind the red-clothed man. His ice-cold eyes didn't contain the slightest bit of human emotion. Demonic? Seeing the person in front of him, a strange look flashed in Qi Huanglan's eyes. This person had actually kept a trump card. Bloody flames strike the heavens. Crimson Viper of the demonic realm reappeared in the world. The demonic figure waved his sword, and blood-colored flames swept out, cutting through the raging waves and attacking the former. Qi Huanglan flipped his palm to block the blood-colored flames. With a thump, he took half a step back and waved his hand to disperse the demonic flames. His eyes turned cold. Such pure demonic essence. Sword style, Crimson Remnant. Demonic style, Bloody Path. The two figures appeared at the same time with completely different powers. The holy and young phoenix and the demonic and cold heavenly demon both stepped forward and joined forces to raise the flames of war again. With a violent tremor, Qi Huanglan blocked the two swords with his palms. The aftershock spread out and dust rolled like waves, turning the world upside down. After one move, the two figures moved again. One heavy and one fast, one cold and one hot. The demonic style was wild and wild, while the phoenix style was calm and emotionless. The most perfect combination, attacking and defending at the same time, forcibly evened out the battle. After several moves, the sky fell and the earth fell. Qi Huanglan faced the two figures of knowing destiny alone. He opened and closed his palms with boundless power. The rumbling shook the world. The demonic figure attacked while the phoenix restrained the enemy. There were no flaws in the combination. Even someone as strong as the #1 Skymender didn't dare to be careless. He raised his hands and feet and dealt with it with full concentration. In the other three battles, Shinji, Lin Yuzhen, and the Waning Moon House Master felt the white-hot battle in the distance. A strange look flashed in their eyes. "It's not the fourth realm." Behind Shinji, Reverend Baiwe spoke. "He's not far off." Shinji said seriously, "The most terrifying thing is that this person isn't like those old monsters who are nearing the end of their lifespans. His vitality is at its peak. Even if he hasn't completely stepped into the fourth realm, his battle prowess should be extremely close." On the other side, Lin Yuzhen waved her sword and pushed away the heaven-mending pavilion master in front of her. She looked at the battle in the distance with a worried expression. In the third battle, the Waning Moon House Master, who was blocked by the experts of the heaven-mending pavilion, sensed the increasingly intense battle in front of her. The yellow springs in her hand flourished, and she pushed away the heaven-mending martial leader and the right protector who were blocking her way. Her figure flashed and flew into the sky. A change occurred in the battle. Many people reacted. The Waning Moon House Master entered Prince Chi's battle. Her vigorous palm energy condensed and slapped towards the heaven-mending pavilion master. The heaven-mending pavilion master couldn't react in time to the sudden attack. He hurriedly blocked it, and with a muffled groan he flew out in red. In an instant, Lin Yuzhen waved her sword and slashed down. The Phoenix Cry sword emitted 10,000 rays of multicolored light and crisscrossed with thunder. With a loud bang, the sword slashed towards the heaven-mending pavilion master again. Behind her, Qi Wenju and Jiang Yun, who had hurriedly rushed over, stood in front of her to block the sword. They immediately let out a muffled groan as they suffered a heavy backlash. "Prince Qi," the Waning Moon House Master reminded. "I understand," Lin Yuzhen replied. With a graceful step, she leapt towards the distant battle. In the depths of the heaven-mending secret realm, the battle between the two bodies and Qi Huanglan was becoming more and more intense. The number one mending the heavens, whose body had already entered the fourth level, had a frightening cultivation. Every move he made had the power to destroy the heavens and extinguish the earth. Space after space was destroyed and restored, shocking the world. The two bodies' figures intertwined. Qi Lian and Zhu Xian's baleful aura surged violently. They slaughtered millions and formed a path of their own. They cut through the natural laws. And their sword auras were oppressive. Rumbling sounds rang out. Under the suppression of the peerless realms, although the two bodies were gradually injured, their attacks did not decrease. They used offense as defense, calm and crazy. In the distance, Lin Yuzhen hurriedly rushed over. Lightning flickered on her phoenix cry sword. The instant she was about to enter the battle, she suddenly felt a chill around her body. Above the void, ancient war chariots appeared out of thin air. Black arrows pierced through the air and arrived in front of her in the blink of an eye. Seeing this, Lin Yuzhen's expression became serious. Her footsteps turned, and she avoided most of the arrows. At the same time, she waved her phoenix cry sword to block the first wave of attacks. Left protector. Outside the battle, the injured Qi Wenju, Jiang Yun, and the others arrived on top of the war chariot. When they saw the beautiful figure that appeared, their faces were filled with joy. She had finally rushed back. Within the heaven-mending pavilion, the left protector was the only one who could match the pavilion master in both strength and prestige. However, she had always been in charge of expanding the territory outside, and had never returned. Those who offend my heaven-mending pavilion will be killed without mercy. On top of the war chariot, Qi Xian, who was dressed in black soft armor, coldly said. Soon after, she took a step forward. Her halberd pierced through the air and chopped down towards the people below with the force of 10,000 caddies. Lin Yuzhen's eyes became serious. She waved her sword to meet the attack, but with a loud bang, a wave of dust soared into the sky around the two people. In the first exchange, the left protector Butian met Prince Qi alone. He did not show the slightest bit of fear. His divine halberd was tyrannical, and his strength surpassed 10,000 caddies. Another variable came. In the distant battle, the Dawn Moon brothel master and Shen Ji both frowned. Their luck was really bad. This woman's strength was not weak, and she came back at the wrong time. Shen Ji, end this quickly. Worried about Ji Ming's safety, the Dawn Moon brothel master glanced at the purple-clothed figure on the other side of the battle and said. Shen Ji nodded. He turned his palm and slashed across his sword. Immediately, above the purple clouds, boundless purple qi surged out. An incomparable pressure swept out and forced the 10 venerables to retreat. Spring and autumn sword, 10,000 things enlightened. The heavenly law extreme technique appeared in the mortal world. It was a realm that only those who had peeked into the fourth level could reach. Now that it had appeared, the universe was shaken. In the depths of the heaven-mending pavilion, Qi Kuanglan sensed something. He looked at the distant void, and a strange expression flashed through his eyes. In this era, there was actually someone who had peeked into the secrets of the fourth level. 6 ultimates of the sky demon, burial of 1,000 gods. Seeing a sliver of opportunity, the demonic qi around the demonic body surged. The royal clan's absolute technique appeared in the mortal world. Boundless turbulence surged on the scarlet drill sword. Black lightning crisscrossed and slashed through the air. Qi Kuanglan came back to his senses. His expression became serious. The cloud on his palm descended from the sky and blocked the royal clan's absolute technique. Sword technique, heavenly sword. The moment the palm and sword collided, the phoenix body condensed energy. The sword light soared into the sky. The extreme sword slashed down, splitting the sky and earth. With a loud explosion, Qi Kuanglan raised his hand to block the attack again. His body sank, and his knees sank into the ground. You're not bad. The splashing vermilion red stained his green clothes. Qi Kuanglan waved his hand to disperse the aftershock. His eyes gradually became cold. The injuries on his hands automatically healed, leaving no trace behind. There was a clear gap between their realms. Although his two bodies were powerful at this moment, they were also showing signs of defeat. Demonic body. Ningchen looked at the black-clothed demonic body and said. The demonic body nodded. He took a step forward and his body soared into the sky. The 300-meter demonic body appeared again. In an instant, demonic waves surged in all directions and the starry sky shook. Stars transformation. The demonic body raised his hand. Thunder erupted between his fists. Above the 9 heavens, the phantoms of great stars appeared one after another. Each one was shockingly huge. The celestial demon royal clan's absolute technique appeared again. The great stars fell. It was like the end of the world. The entire heaven-mending secret realm shook, unable to bear the overflowing demonic might. The calamity of destruction descended upon the heaven-mending pavilion. Qi Kuanglan's expression changed slightly. He took a step forward and leaped into the sky. His hands condensed his cultivation to block the falling stars. Chapter 831. In the sky above the heaven-mending secret realm, stars fell and destructive power descended. The scene of doomsday was shocking. Mending the heavens was in danger. Qi Kuanglan leaped up. His hands circulated all of his body's techniques. Rolling clouds surged as he faced the destructive tribulation head-on. A peerless expert who was infinitely close to the fourth realm attacked with all his strength. Stormy waves surged in all directions. Layer after layer of heavenly waves rushed into the sky, blocking the falling stars. Boom! An extremely terrifying tremor sounded. The great stars and heavenly waves collided. Endless waves surged and roared. Heaven and earth instantly changed color. Thunder and rain fell and fog covered the world. Reincarnation tribulation. After the stars, the reincarnation tribulation appeared. Between the hands of the 100-Zhang demon, a river of stars swirled. An incomparably violent power crushed the stars and pressed down from the sky. The royal technique arrived again. Qi Kuanglan's expression also became serious. He flipped his palm and held up the sky, blocking the reincarnation tribulation. The heavenly demon secret technique erupted with the power to destroy stars. It shattered the void within 1,000 li. Above the heaven-mending secret realm, heaven and earth instantly turned into nothingness. Huge black holes appeared one after another. The scene was so terrifying that it made one's heart palpitate. At this moment, the other 3 battlefields were also affected by this great battle. Violent waves surged, and everyone retreated one after another. Sword technique formless sword. In the raging waves, the red-clothed figure flashed past. The wind and clouds on the immortal slaying sword changed. The infinitely concentrated sword gathered the heroic energy from all directions and pierced towards the heart of the person in front of it. Absolute speed broke through the gap between realms. Qi Kuanglan, who had continuously memorized the techniques of the demon, didn't have enough time to recover his energy. The immortal slaying sword broke through the protective energy and pierced into the former's body. Ugh! With an undetectable groan. The sword penetrated half an inch and couldn't go any further. Qi Kuanglan grabbed the immortal slaying sword with his left hand. Blood flowed down and dyed his sleeve red. Impudent! With a bang, he forcefully countered with a palm. Ningchen couldn't withdraw his sword in time. His body flew out and blood dyed the void. Demons devour the heavens. The phoenix body retreated, and the demon body advanced again. Thousands of demonic shadows appeared in the sky and rushed forward one after another. Explosions sounded one after another. Demons devoured the heavens and drowned Kuanglan's body. Cloud hand. At this moment, a voice rang out amidst the demonic aura. A gigantic palm that blotted out the skies appeared, shattering the attacks of the 10,000 demons with a single palm strike. The green-robed figure appeared, as strong as ever. Not good. Seeing that the battle in the distance was in imminent danger, the expressions of the Dawn Moon House Master and the others changed. They wanted to rush over to help, but they were unable to do so. Are you anxious? Sword and halberd collided. Qi Xian looked at King Qi and indifferently said, Patriarch Kuanglan has already awakened. Mo Gate's 9th son will definitely die. You don't need to be too anxious. You'll meet again in the Yellow Springs soon. As a woman, I have to say that you are really annoying. Lin Yuzhen's face flashed with murderous intent. Her sword was as graceful as a swan, and she once again displayed the demeanor of a king. Qi Hua immediately felt the pressure on him increase, and he waved his halberd to resist the king's fury. Lin Yuzhen, who was truly enraged, no longer showed any mercy in her moves. Every move she made was ruthless, forceful, and overbearing. A woman's anger is truly terrifying. Your Highness, do you need my help? Shinji's silhouette appeared. The heavenly path technique broke through the encirclement and appeared on the battlefield nearby. No need. You go and help him. Leave this person to me. Lin Yuzhen took a step forward. Her body was like a dancing phoenix as her sword slashed through the air. Sword and halberd collided once more. Blood flowed out of Qi Xian's right hand. A king's might could not be blasphemed, and she was injured for the first time. On the other side, the Dawn Moon House Master was standing alone in the sky, with the yellow springs in hand. She was like a divine general that had descended. She blocked all the venerables on her own. House Master, you're finally willing to help. The Reverence Moon House Master walked over and softly said, everyone is fighting with their lives on the line. How can I be lazy? The Dawn Moon House Master swept out her spear. Silver light blossomed, and the venerables were forced to retreat. Don't let anything happen to him, said the Dawn Moon House Master. Since the House Master has instructed us, we will naturally do our best. With that, the Reverence Moon House Master's figure disappeared into the distance. His aura continued to rise. A white moon mark appeared between his eyebrows, reflecting the cold moon rising from the east. The Reverence Moon Clan's high priest had revealed his true appearance for the first time. In the depths of the heaven-mending secret realm, Ji Ming was facing the number 1 venerables of the heaven-mending secret realm. The battle had already lasted for nearly 100 rounds. The combination of power and speed was perfect. Both sides were dyed red. Qi Guanglan stood tall, alternating between offense and defense. The contempt in his eyes was no longer there. He was fully focused on the battle. He knew that the young man in front of him already had the qualifications to make him use his full strength. 9 refinements of heavenly cleansing, torrential torrent. With a raise of his hand, dark clouds fell from the sky and waves of water surged. A power that surpassed the power of words descended from the sky. A terrifying pressure spread out, causing the world to darken. Demonic flames prairie. Torrential torrents of demonic flames rose. The 300-meter-tall demonic body punched out, causing a sea of flames to surge and engulf the world. With a boom, the water and fire collided and rapidly melted. The moment the demonic body's strength was exhausted, phoenix flames soared into the sky. You're the first one in 1,000 years to have this kind of ability at such a young age. Qi Guanglan wasn't stingy with his praise. Qi Guanglan's true yuan rose again, and torrents of water gradually engulfed the sea of flames. In a few hundred years or even 100 years, this young man might have the strength to stand on equal footing with him. However, he was still too young right now. With insufficient true yuan, both of them retreated several steps. The gap between their foundations and realms was gradually revealed. Even if their experience was unparalleled, even if their battle prowess was shocking, it was still difficult to cross the heavenly chasm of cultivation at this moment. The 300-meter-tall demonic body returned to its original form. The two glanced at each other and no longer hesitated. Their aura rose as they raised their hands to face each other. The demonic phoenix heavenly tribulation suddenly appeared. The forbidden sword was about to be unleashed. The world rumbled. At this moment, 2 figures appeared and raised their hands to stop the attack. You've done enough. Retreat and heal your injuries. Leave this battle to me and Shinji. Reverend Baiyu said softly. Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. The aura of the two dissipated and merged into one. He reminded, be careful. This person is very strong. Okay. Reverend Baiyu nodded. Don't worry. We're also very strong. Ning Chen didn't say anything else. His figure flashed as he temporarily retreated from the battle. Sorry, Your Excellency's opponent is now us. Reverend Baiyu looked at the azure-robed man in front of him and said calmly. Reverend Baiyu clan, I didn't expect you to also come out into the world. Qi Guanglan said indifferently when he saw the mark between the eyebrows of the woman in front of him. The world is unpredictable. My clan naturally can't choose to remain in seclusion. Isn't Your Excellency's Butian Pavilion the same? You've been in seclusion for many years. Didn't you choose to come out again today? Reverend Baiyu replied. Unfortunately, we can't become friends. Qi Kuanglan looked at the young man who had retreated from the battle, and said regretfully. It's hard to be friends, but it's easy to be enemies. Reverend Baiyu waved his hand and the moonlight around him flourished. A bright moon rose behind him and a never-before-seen power appeared, freezing the world. Let's see if you're qualified. After saying that, Qi Kuanglan's expression turned serious. He raised his hands, causing waves to surge. The power to overturn the heavens and earth distorted everything, shocking everyone. The first move, Reverend Moon Shakes the Raging Waves, was supported by the moonlight. With a boom, Reverend Baiyu retreated half a step, falling into a disadvantageous position. Zon Ran, stay your hand. Reverend Baiyu retreated and Shen Ji's figure flashed. Above the purple clouds, purple qi surged. A power comparable to the fate of an emperor broke through the sky and arrived before Butian Kuanglan. His palm energy shook the divine blade and split the world. Reverend Baiyu arrived in an instant. His slender hand drew the moonlight in the sky and slammed down. Good. Qi Kuanglan advanced instead of retreating. He condensed his palm energy and met the attack head-on. It was a battle that surpassed common sense. The three of them displayed strength that surpassed their peak. Every move they made could destroy the world. Not far away, Ningchen was watching the battle. Light flashed in his eyes. He had always known that Shenji, the Dawn Moon Housemaster, and Reverend Baiyu were hiding their strength. Today, he finally knew how terrifying the three of them were. They could look down on a region by themselves. They indeed had the capital that ordinary people couldn't compare to. Ziming Marquis, you need to step into the immortal treading realm as soon as possible, no matter what method you use. Otherwise, you'll be eliminated by this era. In the distance, the Reverend Baiyu transmitted her voice. Thank you for your reminder. I know what to do. Ningchen nodded. The Reverend Baiyu waved her spear to push back the reverends from Butian Pavilion. She withdrew her thoughts and didn't say anything more. She had already reminded him. As for whether he could do it or not, it was up to him. The opening of the ancient battlefield wasn't just about those forgotten immortal tools and techniques. Those who had obtained fortuitous encounters would advance faster than others. However, the true meaning of the opening of the ancient battlefield was to replenish the source energy that was gradually being exhausted. Although it wasn't much, it was enough to support some people to step into the fourth realm. Therefore, the most important thing now was time. If they couldn't step into the fourth realm before the source energy was exhausted, they would once again fall into the nightmare of nearly 10,000 years. That Gu Yao was already infinitely close to the fourth realm. This Butian Pavilion's Qi Kuanglan was also the same. There were also Shenji, Baiyu and other overlords. Everyone was waiting for an opportunity to step into the immortal treading realm. There weren't many opportunities like this, and they would become fewer and fewer. If they missed it, it would be forever. Ziming Marquis wasn't bad. However, in this glorious era he was only not bad. Because his talent was too lacking, he couldn't step into the immortal treading realm. In another 100 years, he wouldn't have another chance to compete with the heroes of the world. Phoenix dances in the heavens. Not far away, Lin Yuzhen, who was blocked by Butian's left protector, finally exhausted her last bit of patience. Her true essence rushed out, and her long hair danced wildly. She took a step forward, and the space below her shattered. Her sword condensed into lightning, and her king's might was vast and mighty. Qi Hua waved his halberd to block the attack. An almost undetectable groan came from his mouth. Blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. He was heavily injured again. I hate women, but I hate those who block my path even more. Her hair crown was shattered, and her long hair danced in the wind. Lin Yuzhen's appearance also changed a bit. She was less handsome and more beautiful. Her original appearance was restored, and she gathered all her power. Lin Yuzhen's figure moved again, and the sound of the phoenix cry sword resounded through the world. It was clear and powerful. Qi Xian received another attack, and her injuries worsened. She retreated again, and the shock in her eyes was difficult to conceal. She didn't expect that this Prince Qi hadn't used his full strength just now. The situation of the three-sided battle changed again. The wind and clouds rolled, and the changes were unpredictable. Chapter 832. In the heaven-mending secret realm, the situation had changed. Knowing destiny retreated, and Shenji and Baiyu took over, joining forces to fight Butian Quanglan. In the farthest battlefield, the Dawn Moon House Master no longer hid her strength. She blocked all the venerables by herself. Her terrifying strength was eye-catching. At the same time, Prince Qi returned to his original appearance and fully unleashed his techniques. Phoenix cries howled in the sky as he suppressed the left guardian Butian. This was a true battle between the top. Every battle was filled with flames of war. The shocking scene made the creatures on the ancient planet tremble. Outside the battle, Ning Chun retreated temporarily. He watched the battle while recovering his body. The intensity of this battle was beyond imagination. Heaven-mending Pavilion's strength was also shocking. Qi Quanglan alone was enough to leave all the inheritances in the world in the dust. He was a peerless powerhouse who still retained his vigorous vitality and lifespan. He was far from the Hall of the Dead's half-step fourth realm 10th ancestor. This Qi Quanglan had truly stepped into the fourth realm. While thinking, Ning Chen's body was surrounded by the aura of the Phoenix demon. His two bodies healed themselves, not interfering with each other. Saints and demons were natural enemies. The Phoenix demon belonged to the power of the saint, and it was difficult to merge with the demonic power of the demon body. Forcefully merging would only backfire on oneself. Not far away, Shinji and Baiyu were fighting Qi Quanglan. The battle was getting more and more intense. The number one Butian, who was comparable to the fourth realm, gathered all his power. He raised his hand and the wind and clouds changed, commanding heaven and earth. Shinji's sword was like flowing water. Above the purple clouds, the purple Qi became more and more majestic. His 1,000 years of cultivation and knowledge were all released today. He was not afraid even when facing a peerless powerhouse who had surpassed the half-step fourth realm. In a head-on battle, the divine sword shook the raging waves. Every move was destructive. It was a shocking battle that surpassed the peak of the human world, and shone for all eternity. The cold moon rose from the east. Under the moonlight, Baiyu the Venerable's aura also became stronger and stronger. His delicate hands were like peerless divine weapons. After exchanging 100 moves, Qi Quanglan fought 1 against 2. His moves were majestic, and he did not fall into a disadvantage. 9 refinements of heavenly washing, raging waves. When the battle reached its climax, Qi Quanglan used his ultimate move. Suddenly, thousands of heavenly waves coiled around him. Seeing this, Shenji took a step forward. The purple cloud sword in his hand shone brightly. His extreme techniques were combined, and the sword light shone brightly. At the side, Baiyu's figure flashed and appeared behind the former. With a flip of his palm, he condensed Yuan Qi and sent out a palm attack. Purple cloud rainbow. The purple heavens slashed down, and the sword light cleaved open the starry sky. Raging waves followed, and with a boom, the two extremes collided. In the aftermath, the two figures retreated half a step before stabilizing their bodies. On the other side, Qi Quanglan waved his hand to block the shockwaves and took half a step back. His expression didn't change much. In a move that was evenly matched, no one had gained the upper hand, but no one had lost either. Baiyu stepped out from behind Shinji. A strange expression appeared on his extraordinary face. There was no doubt that the person in front of him was the most powerful person in the world, if the fourth-level old monsters were not included. Again. The madness on Qi Quanglan's face grew even stronger. Taking a step forward, he turned his palm into a fist and punched out with a vigorous and domineering force. Shinji's eyes turned cold. Even though they were right in front of him, he did not dodge. Instead, he raised his hand to receive the punch. Half a step down, the sword light slashed down. Close combat was even more dangerous. The air around the two of them constantly vibrated. Their fists and feet collided, tearing apart everything. Satisfying. Qi Quanglan let out a long roar and raised his Zhenyuan once more. With another punch, he forced the person in front of him back. Heavenly moon illuminates the 9 prefectures. The moment they separated, Baiyu's move arrived. Moonlight poured down, swallowing the world. This was an unavoidable move. Qi Kuanglan took in a deep breath, his true essence surging to protect his body. Rhino Heavenly Finger. The moment the 2 moves collided, Baiyu used his ultimate move. He gathered True Yuan with a finger and instantly reached the front, breaking through Qi Kuanglan's trembling True Yuan. Ugh! With a soft groan, Qi Kuanglan's True Yuan was broken. The finger entered his body, bringing out a waterfall of blood. Back off! With a shout, Qi Kuanglan flipped his palm and sent Baiyu flying. The splashing blood dyed the void red. Baiyu staggered a few steps and barely managed to stabilize himself. How are you? Not far away, Shinji asked. I'm fine. Baiyu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and answered. Outside the battle, Ning Chen, who had been watching for a long time, had recovered more than half of his true yuan. Demonic chi and phoenix essence surged and gathered. The phoenix demon opened the formation, manifesting yin and yang. The Taiji diagram rose into the sky. Endless yin and yang energy surged from all directions, engulfing the wind and clouds and shaking the stars. Qi Kuanglan sensed it, and his expression sank. He took a step forward, wanting to stop the former from condensing his move. Kunwei Yi Gan Qi. In an instant, Shenji's figure appeared in front of Qi Kuanglan. Purple clouds rose and draconic qi took shape, swallowing the former. Emperor Qi Kuanglan. Qi Kuanglan's eyes narrowed. He waved his hand and shook off the draconic qi. He took half a step back. 1,000 years ago, I was also the ruler of a dynasty, Shenji said indifferently. Purple clouds coiled around his body. His incomparably noble temperament made people not dare to profane him. The purple clouds trembled. The draconic qi contained a draconic aura. Waves of draconic roars were faintly discernible. Its might was vigorous and overbearing, shaking the world. The draconic roar reached the 9 heavens. Shenji's figure moved again. Purple clouds surged and strengthened the divine sword's might. On the other side, Reverend Baiwe channeled the power of the moon and joined hands to suppress the battle. They clashed again. The flames were even stronger than before. The void between the 3 shattered. The aftershocks surged and became even more violent. Outside the battle, Ning Chen's phoenix demon energy continued to gather around him. The Taiji diagram above his head spun faster and faster. Inside the heaven-mending secret realm, spiritual qi surged rapidly and converged into the yin and yang formation. Qi Kuanglan wanted to break out of the encirclement and stop them. However, the 2 joined hands and couldn't break through. It was difficult to break through for a while. Seniors, please step back. After accumulating power for a long time, Ningchen transmitted his voice to the 2. Then, Taisher crossed his hand, its might soaring into the sky. Shinji and Reverend Baiwe heard the warning and attacked at the same time. Then, they took a step forward and left the battle. Qi Kuanglan flipped his palm to block the 2's combined attack. He glanced at the young man not far away and his expression changed. 6 Dao Fall, Myriad Demonic Tribulations, Grand Forbidden Sword. He stepped into the 9 heavens. In the sky, a black phoenix appeared amidst the violent sword waves. Its demonic qi covered the sky and the moon. Demonic Phoenix Heavenly Tribulation. The appearance of the demonic phoenix Heavenly Tribulation signified the end of the world. The terrifying sword pressure swept through the 9 heavens and 10 earths. The entire heaven-mending secret realm disintegrated for no reason. The apocalyptic scene was extremely shocking. The next moment, the demonic phoenix fell from the sky and crashed into the people below. Heavenly cleansing 9 refinements, starry river dazzling. Seeing this, Qi Kuanglan's expression turned serious. He used his strongest move and soared into the sky. 9 waterfalls coiled around him, dazzling like the starry sky. Boom. An instant later, an earth-shattering collision sounded. The waves roared and the aftermath surged. Amidst the shocking destruction, the 2 figures flew out, dyed red. Baiwe. Shenji spoke when the opportunity appeared. Baiwe nodded. With a wave of her delicate hand, the heaven-stabilizing chessboard appeared. Everything in the world instantly stopped. In an instant, Shunji moved. Purple clouds broke through the sky and slashed at Qi Kuanglan. Naive. Qi Kuanglan raised his hand to grab the sword. His left hand, which was bleeding, blocked the fatal strike. His right palm condensed yuan and slapped out. Shunji frowned. His footsteps trembled as he withdrew his sword and avoided the palm energy. Seeing that the opportunity had been missed, Ning Chun, who had suffered the backlash from the previous collision, shone brightly. The demonic body bore the full brunt of the aftermath. The phoenix body left his body and shot out with extreme speed. The sword pierced through Qi Kuanglan's chest before he could react. Qi Kuanglan retreated, his blood and qi shook violently. 6 ultimates of the celestial demon, eternal banishment. Unable to miss this opportunity, the demonic body transformed into a demonic avatar. The void between the hands of the demonic body shattered. A boundless spatial tearing force came, forcefully swallowing the two. Qi Kuanglan's expression changed as he entered the void. He wanted to break free, but it was already too late. His true essence was disrupted by the sword qi that entered his body. Farewell. The phoenix body withdrew his sword and soared into the sky. He looked at the figure that was gradually disappearing into the void, and said coldly. A moment later, the void was restored. Heaven and earth returned to normal. Not a single trace could be seen. The battle had come to an abrupt end. No one present could recover from their shock. The number 1 heaven-mending expert had been banished into the void for eternity. What a terrifying young man. The Reverend Moon Venerable looked over, and saw the black and red figures standing in the void. He had a grave expression. When it came to grasping opportunities, she and Shunji, who had lived for 1,000 years, didn't dare to say that they could surpass this kid. Drip. Blood dripped down, staining the black robe. The demonic body's injuries erupted. Demonic qi spread wildly. Heal your injuries first. Leave the rest to me. The phoenix body stepped forward and said. The demonic body nodded. His figure dissipated and merged into the phoenix body. After the demonic body returned, Ningchen looked at the 2 people not far away and said, Seniors, I'll have to trouble you to help the house master and Prince Qi. After saying that, Ning Chen's figure flashed and rushed toward the heaven-mending ground. Shunji narrowed his eyes. He looked back at the 2 battles behind him and said calmly, Reverend Moon, go and help Prince Qi. Understood. The Reverend Moon Venerable replied. His figure flashed and rushed toward the battle. Shunji looked into the distance. He didn't hesitate anymore. He stepped forward and rushed forward. Done. In the sky, the Dawn Moon House Master waved her spear and pushed away the venerables. She didn't even look back as she asked. Yes. Shunji nodded. Then I'll have to trouble you to help. The Dawn Moon House Master continued. With the House Master's strength, 1 person is enough to deal with them, Shunji said calmly. Heh. The Dawn Moon House Master chuckled and said. It's better to end the battle quickly. Things might change if we take too long. Who knows if there's a true 4th realm in this heaven-mending secret realm. I think, Shunji, you don't want to face these old monsters so soon. The House Master's words are reasonable. Shunji nodded. He waved his hand and a sword appeared. The purple cloud sword streaked across the sky and joined the battle. Just as the battle at Heaven Mending Pavilion was coming to an end, figures in strange clothes descended from the sky outside the ancient star. In the next moment, an ancient palanquin slowly descended. A powerful sword intent spread out from it. It surpassed the peak and was unique in the world. Sword slave, go and deliver the sword invitation. A gentle voice said softly from the palanquin. Yes. Of the 4 figures, the one at the front respectfully accepted the order, and immediately rushed toward the heaven-mending secret realm. Chapter 833. In the heaven-mending secret realm, the battle was coming to an end. Shinji and Baiyu made their moves, and the already exhausted heaven-mending sect immediately fell into a desperate situation. Above the void, 1 figure after another fell from the sky and landed with a thud. Blood flowed and dyed the earth red. In the battle between the winner and the loser, no one held back. After a bitter battle, The heaven-mending pavilion that had been dominating the region for tens of thousands of years was destroyed today. Its vitality was greatly damaged. Qi Kuanglan was exiled, and the heaven-mending pavilion's master was heavily injured. The heaven-mending pavilion's strongest force was wiped out in one day, and they no longer had the strength to fight back. In the depths of the heaven-mending secret realm, Ning Chen's figure appeared in a turbulent forbidden area. Looking at the heaven-mending forbidden area in front of him, his expression became serious. If he guessed correctly, this was the heaven-mending pavilion's most secret place. He hoped that no more variables would appear. The heaven-mending forbidden area was a 100-li forbidden area. Everywhere was deathly silent, and not a trace of life could be seen. Ning Chen walked in. Zhu Xian and Zhu Xian coiled around his body, and a powerful aura circulated, dispersing the surrounding yin qi. Wang. After walking 100 steps forward, a change suddenly occurred. On the ground, a bright light flashed and disappeared in a flash, leaving no trace behind. Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. He took a step forward, and his body turned into a red light as he quickly chased after it. One after the other, the flowing light chased with extreme speed. In the blink of an eye, they were already 100 li away. This is 100 li away. Ning Chen calmed himself down. He waved his right hand, and sword intent filled the sky, forming an inescapable net that sealed off 1,000 zhang of space. Amidst the crisscrossing sword lights, a palm-sized gourd appeared. On top of the gourd, a little boy that seemed to be carved from jade sat shivering, his young and tender eyes looking at the person in front of him, full of fear. Seeing this, Ning Chen frowned slightly. An immortal medicine that gained intelligence? Immortal elder, please spare my life. The little boy was less than 3 inches tall. He sat on the little gourd with a gourd leaf on his head. Looking at the human in front of him, he said in fear. Ning Chen did not say anything. He flipped his right hand, and immediately, a powerful suction force came out, capturing the little boy. Although the human-shaped immortal medicine was only the size of a palm, it was like a treasure house of spiritual qi. Just smelling its aura made one feel relaxed and happy. Swallow it, the main body has a 70% chance of awakening. Demonic qi surged out. A cold voice sounded. Demon. The little boy exclaimed with a look of fear on his face. What are you still hesitating for? The demon said coldly. Immortal elder, spare me. The little boy knelt on the gourd and kowtowed repeatedly. Ning Chen looked at the little man on the gourd and fell silent. It's a spiritual medicine in the first place. It was born to be eaten by others. What are you hesitating for? Phoenix body, you are not the savior of the world. Put away your useless mercy. The demon body coldly shouted again. Senior immortal, please spare me. On the small gourd, the boy's delicate face was filled with fear as he trembled. More and more demonic qi surrounded Ning Chen. It was boundless, and it dyed the heavens and earth black. What is your purpose in coming to the heaven-mending pavilion? Have you forgotten your previous lesson? If you miss this kind of immortal medicine today, where will you find it again in the future? Within the demonic energy, the devil's voice became colder and colder, making people tremble with fear. Demon body, we have already killed enough. Ning Chen gently tapped the boy's forehead and said, Come with me. I won't take your life. The little boy hesitated for a moment. After a while he respectfully bowed and said, Thank you, immortal elder. After speaking, the little boy's figure flashed and flew to Ning Chen's shoulder. His expression was still filled with fear and restraint. Don't be afraid. I said I won't take your life, so I won't go back on my words. Ning Chen looked at the deathly silent forbidden area in front of him, and said with a serious expression, Phoenix body, your mercy really makes me hate you. As he spoke, the surging demonic qi gradually converged and disappeared in the blink of an eye. After the demonic qi disappeared, the little boy on Ning Chen's shoulder finally calmed down a little. He sat on Ning Chen's shoulder and carefully said, Immortal elder, there are still many great medicines here. Can I help immortal elder find them? Ning Chen calmly said, Lead the way. The little boy nodded and immediately sat on the small gourd and flew forward. Ning Chen followed behind. He released his divine sense and was on guard for any unknown dangers. Not long after, on the cold ground, a strangely shaped medicine king appeared. It had a strong vitality that attracted people's attention. Ningchen walked forward and waved his hand to catch the medicine king. He looked at it and casually put it away. Seeing Ningchen's indifferent expression, the little boy nervously said, "Immortal Elder, there's more ahead. Continue to lead the way," Ningchen said with a calm expression. "Okay." The little boy nodded and continued to fly forward. Ningchen quietly followed behind. Looking at the little gourd the little boy was sitting on, a thoughtful light flashed in his eyes. This little boy's original form should be an immortal vine. Everything has a spirit, but only a handful of immortal vines can truly develop consciousness. Ningchen really couldn't bear to destroy it. The vast and boundless forbidden area seemed to have condensed the laws of space. Great medicines were scattered everywhere, almost devouring the spiritual qi on the ground. Within 10,000 miles, not a single blade of grass could grow. In an hour, the little boy had already brought Ningchen to 4 precious medicine kings. As the only immortal medicine in the forbidden area that had developed consciousness, the little boy was very familiar with the surrounding terrain, and saved a lot of time. "Immortal Elder, this is all." On the small gourd, the little boy said nervously, "These years, the spiritual qi here has gradually dried up. Most of the medicine kings have also been taken away by humans. There aren't many left." "That's enough." Ningchen nodded. With a wave of his left hand, the immortal trapping sword appeared in his hand. He stabbed it into the ground, and the ground within 10,000 miles began to rumble. Under the ground, the sword qi cut through the spirit vein. Within the violent tremors, the spirit vein's foundation collapsed. The overflowing spiritual qi continuously poured into the immortal trapping sword. It completely destroyed the spirit vein below, and there was no way for it to recover. Outside the forbidden area, the experts of the heaven-mending pavilion felt the destruction of the spirit vein. Their gazes all changed, and their faces revealed shock. In the sky above the ancient planet, a faint sigh came from the floating palanquin. "I never thought that the famous heaven-mending pavilion would suffer such a great calamity today. The strength of these 5 people is truly more terrifying than the last. Although they are strong, compared to the 3rd pavilion master, they are still incomparable." A sword slave respectfully said, "Don't say such words again. Disrespecting the strong is disrespecting yourself." In the palanquin, the gentle voice of the woman once again said, "Before stepping into the 4th realm, with the strength of these 5 people, no one dares to say they can definitely win. Even I can't." Hearing this, the sword slave respectfully lowered his head, not daring to say anything else. In the forbidden area of the heaven-mending forbidden area, the immortal trapping sword cut through the earth vein. Endless red light crisscrossed, cutting through space and creating cracks. Under the ground, boundless spiritual qi unceasingly poured into the immortal sword, causing the sword's pressure to become even more terrifying. Ningchen's hands quickly formed seals, and one restriction after another was formed. The yellow springs restriction opened, sealing the immortal sword and slowing down the dissipation of its power. A moment later, Ningchen waved his hand and put away the immortal sword. On the side on the little gourd, the little boy saw this scene. His delicate little face was filled with shock, and he was unable to recover for a long time. "Let's go," Ningchen said, then turned around and walked towards the outside of the forbidden area. The little boy came back to his senses and slowly flew to Ningchen's shoulder. He was a bit nervous as he said, "Immortal Elder, my name is Little Gourd." Ningchen faintly smiled, nodded, and noted it down. Little Gourd plucked up his courage and stretched out his little hand to pull on Ningchen's hair, sitting a bit more steadily. At this moment, space shook, and a blue-robed youth appeared. He waved his right hand, and a sharp sword light flew out. Within that sword light was a faintly discernible sword scroll that emitted a bone-chilling coldness. Mo Gates' 9th son in 100 days, at the Sword Pavilion's sword competition. I invite you to come and discuss the world's heroes. The sword scroll arrived in front of Ningchen, and its power didn't decrease in the slightest as it cut through space. Ningchen stopped and frowned. He raised his right hand and received the sword scroll with his fingers closed. The one and only sword, which had surpassed the peak, invisibly scattered the sword intent on the sword scroll. Many thanks for the pavilion's invitation. I will consider it. Ningchen replied calmly and continued to walk forward. In the sky, the blue-clothed sword servant didn't speak any further, and its figure faded before vanishing. Not long after, the blue-robed sword slave returned and respectfully bowed. Third Pavilion Master, the sword scroll has been delivered. What did they say? Asked the woman in the palanquin. Shenji and Prince Qi have clearly stated that they will attend. Mo Gate's ninth son didn't give a direct answer. He only said that he would consider it, replied the blue-robed sword slave. Understood. Let's go back. After speaking, the woman in the palanquin didn't say anything else. The palanquin rose and flew towards the depths of the starry sky. The 4 sword slaves followed behind and left together. At the same time that the 5 left, a bitter battle in the heaven-mending secret realm was nearing its end. The heaven-mending pavilion had suffered a great defeat, and had suffered heavy casualties. However, Shinji, the Dawn Moon House Master, and the others didn't kill them all. They all chose to stop before going too far. Ningchen walked over and looked at the battle that had stopped. He said, "Many thanks, everyone. Let's go." Shinji and the Dawn Moon House Master nodded. They stepped forward and soared into the sky. Lin Yuzhen arrived beside Ningchen and looked at the little boy on his shoulder. She revealed a strange expression and said, "A human-shaped immortal medicine?" "Yes." Ningchen nodded and said, "I obtained it in the heaven-mending Forbidden Land. This trip wasn't in vain." The heaven-mending pavilion actually had such a divine item. It's really shocking. However, Brother Ning took this immortal medicine and destroyed the heaven-mending pavilion's earth vein. There will definitely be many troubles in the future, reminded Lin Yuzhen. It's fine. Ningchen lightly shook his head and said, "Even if I didn't do this, the enmity between me and the heaven-mending pavilion would still be difficult to resolve. Unfortunately, with my current strength, I still can't completely destroy this disaster." "It's already enough," Lin Yuzhen softly said. "After this battle, the heaven-mending pavilion's vitality has already been greatly damaged. If we continue to force them, we might draw out those old monsters who should have died long ago. The gains don't make up for the losses." Ningchen nodded. When Qi Kuanglan appeared, he already understood that it was already impossible to destroy the heaven-mending pavilion today. A Qi Kuanglan not only represented a battle strength that surpassed the peak of the true realm, but also meant that the heaven-mending pavilion really did have resources that could allow people to enter the 4th realm. That Qi Kuanglan was already infinitely close to this realm. It was only a matter of time. Chapter 834. A group of people traveled through the vast starry sky. 10,000 miles away, they stopped and bid each other farewell. "Your Highness King Qi, we'll meet again in the Sword Pavilion in 100 days. Shinji looked at the woman in men's clothes and said, "Goodbye." King Qi cupped his fists and bowed. Shinji nodded and looked at the man in the silver-gray cloak. He said, "Pavilion Master, you're welcome to come to the Divine Ji Peak again when you're free." "Of course." The Dawn Moon Pavilion Master smiled. "We'll meet again." Shinji said one last thing before he turned around and left in the other direction of the starry sky. Reverend Baiwa nodded at the 3 people in front of him, then followed him. After the 2 left, the Dawn Moon Pavilion Master looked at the 2 people beside her and said, "Your Highness, Brother Ning, there's only 100 days until the Sword Pavilion's sword competition. Before that, why don't you rest at my Dawn Moon Pavilion for a few days?" Lin Yuzhen thought for a moment and nodded. "All right, then I'll have to trouble you. It's my pleasure." The Dawn Moon Pavilion Master smiled and looked at Ji Ming. "Brother Ning, what about you? I still have some things to do for now. After I'm done, I'll visit the Dawn Moon Pavilion," Ningchen said calmly. "Then I'll wait for Brother Ning at the Dawn Moon Pavilion," the Dawn Moon Pavilion Master replied. Ningchen nodded. His figure flashed, and he transformed into a phoenix and left. "Your Highness, let's go," the Dawn Moon Pavilion Master said. "Okay." Lin Yuzhen withdrew her gaze from the distance and followed him. Beside the Mi River, the autumn wind blew. In the lake, the red lake water drifted with the wind, creating little ripples. The sun was about to set in the west. The sky gradually darkened, and there was a sense of desolation. A red-clothed figure walked over under the setting sun. Her calm face did not show any emotions. The red-clothed figure stopped at the riverside and stood there quietly. The place where the undying peach tree grew in the past had become a land of death. For many years no plants grew. It was so quiet that it was a little scary. Ningchen stood in front of the lake quietly, looking at the lake water dyed red by the blood of the venerables. His eyes flashed. The phoenix manifested, and the white-clothed figure that was in a deep sleep flew out. Her aura was stable, but she still showed no signs of waking up. Demonic chi surged around Ningchen's body as his demonic body took shape. He stood to the side and looked at his real body floating in the air. His eyes, which were as deep as an abyss, turned serious. When the little gourd saw the demon appear, its young face immediately tensed up. It subconsciously grabbed the hair of the person next to it and hid behind it. Ningchen waved his hand and 4 herb kings appeared. In the air, the trapping immortal flew up. Boundless spiritual chi of the earth filled the air and poured into the herb kings. Once the spiritual energy entered, the 4 king medicines began to grow crazily, as if they had received rain after a long drought. After a few breaths of time, the outer layers of the 4 king medicines were torn apart inch by inch, and a refreshing medicinal fragrance permeated the air, making people feel relaxed and happy. The medicinal clothes that were taken off fell to the ground. The 4 king medicines revealed their sparkling and translucent medicinal bodies. Their spiritual energy was oppressive, almost materializing. In the void, the earth-vein spiritual chi continued to flow out from the celestial trapping sword, urging the 4 stalks of king herbs to grow. 15 minutes, 30 minutes, time passed by slowly. The cold moon rose, and under the moon red light flashed. The king herbs grew faster and faster, transforming again and again. At this moment, changes suddenly occurred. The spiritual chi in the 4 king herbs that were constantly transforming suddenly vibrated. The side effects of forcefully growing appeared. Cracks crisscrossed, and the spiritual chi began to leak out violently. Little gourd. Ningchen looked at the little boy on his shoulder and said, "Mm." The little gourd responded crisply and flew to the 4 stalks of king herbs. It bit its finger as if it was afraid of pain. Then, it reached out its white and tender little hand, and dripped a drop of blood on each stalk of king herbs. In an instant, a dazzling brilliance rose. The cracks on the 4 stalks of king herbs healed at a speed visible to the naked eye, and they transformed again. Red, gold, green, and purple for different colors rose. The vitality of the 4 different stalks of king herbs was as vast and boundless as the ocean, unfathomable. In the void, the trapping immortal sword that had exhausted its earth-vein spiritual chi dimmed and slowly fell from the sky. Ningchen waved his hand and put away the immortal sword. He looked at the demonic body and said calmly, "Let's begin." The demonic body nodded and raised its hand. The demonic aura around it surged and turned into raging waves that spread out and poured into the main body. Ningchen also raised his hand. Phoenix aura coiled around it, and the sound of a phoenix rang out. An endless stream of true essence entered the main body. The phoenix and the demon worked together. A powerful force stirred, and the yin and yang were born. 2 pillars of light, one black and one red, rose up, and the formation appeared. It affected the spiritual chi in the surroundings and strengthened the phoenix demon's power. In the void, Bai floated up and down. Her abyss-like body swallowed all the energy that entered her body. It was bottomless, as if it could never be filled. The yin and yang formation opened. The 4 stalks of king herbs shone brightly. The majestic medicinal power was released in the formation, and it merged with the phoenix demon's power into the main body. From night to morning, the phoenix demon worked together to save the main body by the Mi River. The yin and yang formation spun rapidly. The black and red light was dazzling, and a shocking vision appeared between heaven and earth. It was like the sun rising from the east, illuminating the world. Above the 2, the spiritual chi of the 4 stalks of king herbs was constantly being absorbed. It merged with the phoenix demon's power, and stimulated the awakening of the undying divine tree in the main body. A night passed, but there was still no change. In the air, the small gourd looked at the unconscious Bai not far away. A hint of struggle flashed across its small face. A moment later, it bit its finger again. Drops of blood flowed out and flew forward. The power of the human-shaped celestial herb merged with it. Suddenly, the entire yin and yang formation lit up. Majestic vitality surged and drowned Bai Yi's figure. Seeing this, the demonic body looked at the little boy outside the formation. Demonic chi surged in its eyes. The human-shaped celestial herb was indeed extraordinary. If it could obtain all of its medicinal power, the main body might be able to wake up immediately. Demonic body, I already promised it not to harm its life. It has tried its best. Don't kill it, the phoenix demon said. The demonic body snorted and withdrew its gaze. It raised its demonic vitality again and poured it into the main body. On the side, the phoenix demon responded at the same time. Its phoenix vitality urged again. Scorching red light surged and increased the power of the yin and yang formation. The three sides worked together. The four stalks of king herbs scattered and their power completely merged with the main body. The two bodies' power was also rapidly consumed as they made a final effort to awaken the main body. The small gourd's finger had already scabbed over many times. It bit it again and again, causing blood to fly out. It did its best to help the two. Another day passed and the sun set in the west. The afterglow of the setting sun sprinkled on the Mi River, reflecting a glaring bloody light. After 1 day and 1 night, the two bodies' true essence gradually dried up. Even if the yin and yang formation continuously absorbed the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, it was unable to maintain such a terrifying consumption. Outside the yin and yang formation, the small gourd's face was full of fatigue. It swayed on the ground and could no longer fly. Boom. Right at this moment, above the 9 heavens, the weather suddenly changed. The originally clear sky suddenly became densely covered with dark clouds. Streaks of lightning streaked across the horizon and illuminated the dusky world. Oh no! The two bodies' expressions changed. They looked at the horizon with shock. Heavenly tribulation. The immortal tribulation had arrived, and the world mourned. The ground within 10,000 miles rumbled, and an abnormally terrifying pressure descended from the sky. It was as if the laws had condensed into substance. It was so heavy that it made it difficult for people to breathe. The two bodies staggered and their legs sank into the ground. Their bodies that were almost exhausted found it difficult to resist the might of the heavens. The main body's immortal tribulation. Ningchen looked at Sui floating in the void, and said with a shocked expression, "Tribulation." The demon body said in a deep voice. It rose from the ground and blocked in front of the main body. It was fully focused on dealing with the impending tribulation. Ningchen moved at the same time. His figure flashed past. Phoenix flames rose from his body as he stood in the void, waiting for the tribulation to arrive. The most difficult situation was that the main body had yet to awaken, and the two bodies' true essence were almost exhausted. The winds and clouds of the 9 heavens changed, and the heavenly tribulation descended on the mortal world. With a rumble, tens of thousands of lightning bolts descended. It was as if doomsday had arrived. The entire void turned into a sea of lightning that devoured the heavens and the earth. Ningchen stepped forward, and Zhu Xian appeared in his hand. He slashed with the sword and met the lightning that filled the sky. 10,000 demons roared to the heavens. The demon body moved at the same time. 100 feet tall demon body appeared and punched the sky. Tens of thousands of demons soared into the sky. With a loud rumble, the two bodies joined forces to resist the heavenly tribulation. With a world-shaking vibration, blood splattered and dyed the void red. The two bodies that were exhausted retreated. Specks of vermilion scattered and fell from the sky. Reincarnation tribulation. The demon body stopped moving. Black lightning weaved between its fists. The void swirled, and the reincarnation tribulation appeared. The royal clan's ultimate technique rose against the heavens. The majestic demon might shook heaven and earth. Boom. Heavenly lightning pierced through heaven and earth. Lightning bolts that were dozens of feet thick fell, killing the heaven-defying demon body. The heavenly might was vast and endless. The reincarnation tribulation collapsed. With a muffled groan, The demon body was heavily injured again. Blood stained its body, and it was miserable and dazzling. Sword technique, extreme heaven. The sea of lightning was endless. The phoenix body waved its sword and soared into the sky. The dazzling sword light cut through the dusky world and soared into the clouds. The sword light arrived, and the lightning bolts were 10,000 feet long. The green lightning instantly turned red, and the sky was dyed red with blood, destroying all resistance. Lightning fell again. The phoenix body that had not recovered enough energy was dyed red again. Drops of blood flowed from the corner of its mouth. Star transformation. Hunwu. The two bodies attacked again. Great stars appeared, and the sword technique split open the sky. The abnormally powerful extreme might collided with the lightning and blocked the heavenly tribulation. However, the two bodies' strength was already exhausted. Although the technique was shocking, its power was far from its peak. Lightning tore through the sky and shattered the two bodies' ultimate technique. Ah! Two muffled groans sounded. The two bodies retreated more than 10 steps. Blood flowed from their bodies and dyed their clothes red. They could not resist the heavens, and they could not defy fate. Before stepping into the immortal tribulation, the two bodies that were completely exhausted found it difficult to resist. They retreated step by step, and were on the verge of death. Demon Phoenix Heavenly Tribulation. There was no way out. The two bodies looked at each other and activated the last of their techniques. They joined forces to defy the heavens. In an instant, demonic energy and phoenix essence surged. The demon phoenix appeared and rushed into the sky. Honglong. The appearance of the forbidden technique was felt by the 9 heavens. The thunderclouds stirred rapidly. In the giant black vortex, a blood-red lightning that illuminated the world descended from the sky. It was so dazzling that it illuminated the world. The lightning struck the demon phoenix. After a moment of stalemate, the demon phoenix's dharma form collapsed. The two bodies flew out and smashed onto the ground. The two bodies landed. Above the void, an ancient and strange stone gate appeared. It was as majestic as a mountain. The power of laws lingered around it, making the dragon gate heavier. The next moment, the dragon gate descended from the sky and suppressed the 3 bodies of the knowing destiny state. Chapter 835. The night was terrifyingly silent. Beside the Mi River, the dragon gate descended. The 3 bodies of knowing destiny were suppressed and shackled. After the heavenly tribulation, the entire world was devastated. The cold moon hung high in the sky, making it even colder. On the ground, the 2 unconscious bodies gradually woke up. They had been seriously injured and their bodies were cracked. Beside them, the lake water hit the lakeside. A cold wind blew, causing ripples. In the void, Suyi's body was still unconscious. The 3 bodies were suppressed by the dragon gate and bound forever. Cough cough. Violent coughs echoed. Ningchen staggered up and looked around at the devastation. Exhaustion flashed in his eyes. Beside him, the demonic body also stood up. His aura shook and his body was in an unstable state. We failed. The exhaustion in Ningchen's eyes became stronger. He felt powerless. The demonic body clenched his fists. He looked at Ningchen and coldly said, "Your useless kindness has made our path even more difficult." Their main bodies hadn't woken up in time, and had failed to pass the tribulation. Now their 3 bodies were suppressed by the dragon gate, and their bodies were severely restricted. If they wanted to pass the tribulation again in the future, it would be harder than ascending to the heavens. Not far away, the small gourd half buried in the ground listened to their conversation. It trembled and didn't dare to breathe loudly. Ningchen looked over and sighed. "We have too much blood on our hands. I don't want to lose even this last bit of conscience. Demonic body, our path has never been easy. In fact, we were already mentally prepared for this result. To us, becoming a celestial isn't something that can be changed by whether our main bodies wake up or not. If the heavens don't allow it, there is nothing we can do." The demonic body clenched his fists again. His eyes were as dark as an abyss. They had fought against the heavens their entire lives. They had won and lost. However, at the most critical moment, they had been thoroughly defeated. Ning Chun suppressed the injuries in his body and walked in front of Su Yi. He raised his right hand and the phoenix appeared behind him and swallowed his main body. Let's go. The Sword Pavilion's sword competition isn't far away. Before that, let's go to Dawn Moon Pavilion and meet with Prince Qi. After saying that, Ning Chun walked off into the distance. The demonic body withdrew his gaze. Without saying a word, his body dissipated and merged into the phoenix's body. Behind him, the small gourd broke free from the ground and flew up to follow him. In the cold night, the water rippled in the Mi River. The red lake water was so glaring. Perhaps knowing destiny was destined to suffer. People came and went in Jinxi City. The ancient city was bustling with prosperity. Xiaoyuchang'an. The first floor was full of guests. On the stage, dancers dressed in light muslin danced. Their graceful figures made it hard for people to take their eyes off them. Behind the beaded curtain, Hong Wan raised her hand and played the zither. The pleasant sound of the zither reverberated in the loft, causing the bustling guests to quieten down. On the second floor, Lin Yuzhen stood in front of the sky room. Her hair was tied up high, and she was dressed in simple yet noble male attire. She exuded the majesty of a king. Is your highness still worried? In the bright room, the Dawn Moon House master asked while trimming the flowers and plants. It's not that I'm worried. This king is very confident in Brother Ning's strength. It's just that the will of heaven is unpredictable. Who knows what kind of changes might occur? Lin Yuzhen replied calmly in front of the heaven room. In terms of strength, no one below the fourth realm dares to say that they can defeat him. But, in the bright room, the Dawn Moon House master put down the scissors in her hand and picked up the copper pot for watering. She continued, this time he's not fighting against humans but against heaven. Since ancient times, only a few people have survived against heaven. Although knowing destiny is strong, it's hard to be stronger than heaven. Knowing destiny? Lin Yuzhen frowned and asked. The Dawn Moon House master did not answer. She said while watering the flowers and plants, in this sword conference, the immortal slaying sword and immortal trapping sword will definitely attract many people's attention. Sword Pavilion is the head of the 4 pavilions, and its strength is even stronger than Butian. Although I don't know why Sword Pavilion invited so many sword masters, Brother Ning's identity is bound to attract a lot of trouble. I understand what you mean. If Brother Ning enters the treading celestial realm, he naturally won't need my protection. If he fails, I'll do my best to protect Brother Ning in the Sword Pavilion. Lin Yuzhen said seriously. Ning Chun is really lucky to have a friend like your highness, the Dawn Moon House master said calmly. This king treats sincere people with sincerity. Since House Master has repeatedly placed bets on Brother Ning, I believe that the reason is the same as this king's, Lin Yuzhen lightly said. Your highness' words are indeed correct. In the bright room, the Dawn Moon House master reached out and cleaned the weeds in the flowers. She said calmly, I'm a businessman, and I can't do a losing business. However, businessmen also need to gamble sometimes. Brother Ning's tolerance is worthy of me betting my chips. If I win, I'll ascend to the sky step by step and prove my great Tao. If I lose, I'll start all over again. No one can compare with your vision and decisiveness. Lin Yuzhen sighed softly and said, Your highness is too kind. The Dawn Moon House master calmly replied and said, I don't know what will happen in the future, but at least until today, my bet on Brother Ning has been paid off. I always believe that I didn't choose the wrong person this time. On the first floor, the sound of the zither was indistinct as singing and dancing filled the air. All the guests were intoxicated by the music and couldn't take their eyes off it. At the end of the song, the sound of the zither stopped. Hong Wan stood up and put away the zither in front of her before walking towards the second floor. On the second floor, Hong Wan passed by the sky room and bowed towards Prince Qi in front of the room. Lin Yuzhen nodded and returned the greeting. Hong Wan stood up and continued walking towards the bright room. After receiving a knock on the door and receiving a response, Hong Wan pushed the door open and entered the room, putting down the zither in her hands. Your zither skills have improved, but your state of mind isn't calm, the Dawn Moon House master calmly said. Hong Wan nodded and didn't refute. Are you worried about him? The Dawn Moon House Master didn't raise her head as she meticulously arranged the flowers and plants. Hong Wuan nodded again, and didn't refute. Do you know that his heart will never have you? He's the Jiming Marquis, the most affectionate but also the most heartless person in the world, the Dawn Moon House Master reminded. I know. Hong Wuan softly replied. It's good that you understand. More than 100 years of hardships have made him unable to give any more feelings. In this world, you can fall in love with anyone but him, the Dawn Moon House Master indifferently said. There was only one Jiming Marquis in the world. The current Jiming Marquis had probably put away all his thoughts and wholeheartedly wanted to become an immortal. Regardless of victory or defeat, he would do his best in this lifetime. Hong Wuan was silent as her eyes dimmed. No one appreciated her beautiful face covered by a veil anymore, and she didn't want to reveal it to anyone. Outside the Dawn Moon House, Hong Yi appeared and walked into the restaurant step by step. After greeting the shopkeeper, she continued to walk towards the second floor. In front of the sky room, Lin Yuzhen looked at the figure in red walking over, and her eyes narrowed. What's going on? The realm concealed by the chaos volume was difficult to discern. However, Lin Yuzhen could still feel that the aura of the person in front of her was very different from before. Your Highness, I've made you wait for a long time, Ningchen softly said. Did you succeed? Lin Yuzhen didn't say anything else and directly asked. Ningchen lightly shook his head and said, I failed. When Lin Yuzhen heard this, her body trembled. After a moment, she recovered and said with an apologetic look on her face, This queen has been rude, but Brother Ning, don't be discouraged. With your strength, you will be able to successfully take this step sooner or later. Thank you for your auspicious words, Your Highness. Ning Chen faintly smiled, and didn't look discouraged from failing the tribulation. It wasn't that he wasn't mentally prepared for this result. If it was so easy for a mortal to become an immortal, it wouldn't be as difficult as ascending to heaven. If he failed, he could find another way. His path hadn't been cut off yet. Since Brother Ning has such a mentality, it seems that I don't need to say those polite words of comfort. In the bright room, the Dawn Moon House Master stopped what she was doing and spoke. Ning Chun and Lin Yuzhen stepped into the bright room. Hong Wuan bowed to them and retreated to prepare tea. The Dawn Moon House Master walked to a copper basin and washed the dirt off her hands. She calmly said, Please sit as you please. Thank you. Ning Chun and Lin Yuzhen responded and sat down at the table. The Dawn Moon House Master took a white cloth and wiped her hands dry. She turned and walked to the table and said, Brother Ning, how does it feel to become an immortal? How is it different from when you help others? They can't be mentioned in the same breath. Ning Chen honestly replied, Without experiencing the immortal ascension, one wouldn't know how terrifying the heavens are. If the heavens don't allow it, human strength is truly insignificant and not worth mentioning. Perhaps I should think of other methods. Outside the bright room, Hong Wuan walked in with tea. Hearing their conversation, her expression became increasingly gloomy. Indeed, Sir Ning's heart couldn't contain anything other than immortal ascension. Inside the room, the Dawn Moon House Master sensed the aura outside and said, Hong Wuan, the tea is about to turn cold. Why aren't you coming in? At the door, Hong Wuan's body trembled. She forcefully suppressed her thoughts and walked into the room. She placed down the tea and poured them one by one. She softly said, Apologies, I was lost in thought for a moment. Housemaster, Your Highness, Sir Ning, please have some tea. Thank you. Ning Chun and Lin Yuzhen politely replied. Hong Wuan faintly smiled and didn't stay any longer. She turned around and left. The Dawn Moon House Master picked up the tea and took a sip before continuing. Brother Ning, you have to be mentally prepared. After failing the immortal ascension, your cultivation will definitely be suppressed by the Dragon Gate. After that, every time you make a move, the power of the Dragon Gate will become stronger until one day, your cultivation will be completely sealed by the Dragon Gate. Therefore, from now on, unless you have no other choice, Brother Ning, please don't make a move easily. I understand. Ning Chen nodded and said. On the side, Lin Yuzhen heard this and sighed with emotion. Brother Ning, in the Sword Pavilion's Sword Conference, The immortal slaying sword and immortal trapping sword in your hands will definitely attract many people's attention. You have to be mentally prepared. Ningchen nodded and said, the sword conference isn't a martial competition, so I don't have to make a move. As long as the sword pavilion and the experts participating in the sword conference aren't overbearing, I won't casually cause trouble. The sword pavilion's sword conference was also an opportunity for him. The sword pavilion had a long inheritance. They were good at swords, and good at forging swords. Back then, his star soul and natal sword were damaged in the heavenly punishment and couldn't be repaired until now. Perhaps he could use this opportunity to reforge the two swords. Opposite him, the Dawn Moon House master drank the tea in her cup. Her calm eyes flickered with brilliance. Not long ago, she had used the scroll of light to deduce that their trip was extremely dangerous. Chapter 836. In front of the Dawn Moon House, Ning Chun and Prince Qi set off. The master of the Dawn Moon House came out to send them off. She was dressed in luxurious clothes and looked calmer than before. You don't have to send us off. We'll meet again, Lin Yuzhen said politely. Be careful, the master of the Dawn Moon House reminded her. The two nodded and left without saying anything else. Behind them, Hong Wuan, who was dressed in a red dress, stood beside the Dawn Moon Tower's master. Looking at their departing figures, her eyes dimmed. She didn't know when she would be able to meet them again after this separation. Hong Wuan, it's time to let go, the master of the Dawn Moon House said calmly. I understand, Hong Wuan said sadly. The master of the Dawn Moon House nodded and didn't force Hong Wuan. She had to walk out on her own when it came to matters of the heart. The Jiming Marquis had never been a good lover. This relationship was destined to be fruitless. A stream of light streaked across the starry sky and disappeared in a flash. A cyan heavenly boat was speeding towards the other side of the starry sky. The sword pavilion had invited experts from all over the world to compete in the sword. The sword pavilion Wuji banquet had appeared once again. The Wanxiang starfield was an ancient starfield that had been gradually forgotten by the world for thousands of years. Today, streams of light streaked across the starfield, speeding towards the depths of the starfield. The sword pavilion was the head of the four martial pavilions. In ancient times, it was comparable to the peak inheritance of the Hall of the Dead and the Underworld. The heavenly boat arrived in front of the Wanxiang starfield. Ning Chun and Prince Qi stood side by side on the boat, looking at the ancient starfield in front of them with solemn expressions. Ahead of them was the boundary of the Wanxiang starfield, which meant that they weren't far from the sword pavilion. Let's go. It's almost time, Ning Chun said. Okay. Lin Yuzhen responded and the heavenly boat under her flew out, turning into a cyan light with the two of them. In the depths of the Wanxiang starfield, there was a continent drifting in the starry sky. At the center of the continent was the majestic sword pavilion. It towered into the clouds and its imposing aura was shocking. The sword pavilion Wuji banquet was about to begin. Streams of light flashed across the continent from time to time. Sword intent filled the air. Experts who came with sword invitations gathered at the sword pavilion to compete in the sword. Since ancient times, there was no first place in literature and second place in martial arts. The sword pavilion Wuji banquet was a good opportunity to prove it. Swordsmen talk about the sword, the inferior can see the sword on the sword. The heavenly boat appeared and descended from the sky. The two of them got off and walked towards Jianga. Please show me your sword scroll. In front of the sword pavilion, a maidservant with a sword said. Ning Chun and Lin Yuzhen took out their sword scrolls and handed them over. The maid looked over the sword scroll and respectfully bowed. She stepped aside and politely said, "Honored guests, please enter." Ning Chun and Lin Yuzhen nodded and walked into the sword pavilion. Inside the sword pavilion, there was a completely different world. Spring water gurgled, and rockery stood in great numbers. It was as beautiful as the back garden of an imperial palace. It was a feast for the eyes. The maidservant who came to lead the way led the two of them around, and then stopped in front of two exquisite guest rooms. Esteemed guests, this is your temporary resting place. Tomorrow morning, I'll bring you to see the three pavilion masters, said the maid respectfully. Many thanks. Lin Yuzhen nodded and thanked him. The maid bowed again. Without saying anything, she turned and left. At the side, Ningchen looked around and immediately retracted his gaze. He looked at the people beside him and said, "The prohibition and formation of this sword pavilion is not simple. It actually covered the aura of all the powerhouses. As the head of the 4 pavilions, the sword pavilion's strength is already extraordinary, especially their attainments in swords and formations. They are unmatched in the world," replied Lin Yuzhen. "Your Highness seems to know a lot about the sword pavilion," said Ningchen in surprise. Lin Yuzhen nodded. Looking at the Phoenix Cry sword in her hand, she sighed and said, "The Phoenix Cry sword of Beiki is actually from the sword pavilion. Back then, the first emperor of Beiki fell in love with a pavilion master of the sword pavilion. When the emperor ascended the throne after pacifying the world, the pavilion master of the sword pavilion gave him his sword as a bond between the two of them. Unfortunately, in the end, the two of them could not be together because of various unforeseen circumstances. The pavilion master of the sword pavilion left after leaving behind a child. As for the first emperor of Beiki, he never conferred any concubines and lived out his life with regret." Upon hearing this, a strange look flashed across Ning Chen's eyes. So there was such a relationship between the sword pavilion and the Beiki Empire. The Phoenix Cry sword is not an ordinary item. Has the sword pavilion never sent anyone to retrieve it? Asked Ning Chen. Yes, they have. Lin Yuzhen nodded and said, I heard that not long after the first emperor of Beiki passed away, the sword pavilion sent someone to retrieve the Phoenix Cry sword. However, at that time, Beiki was at its peak and its strength was comparable to the top inheritances. The sword pavilion did not dare to force them. Since they could not retrieve it, they gave up temporarily. I see. Ning Chen understood in his heart. It was not without reason that the Beiki Empire could confront the Ji family for so many years. There was a stunning Prince Qi in this generation, and no one dared to look down on him. Before that, there must have been other experts in Beiki who had protected the empire until today. Brother Ning, there should be many experts in the sword realm who will be invited to the endless sword banquet this time. At the same time, the swords in the hands of these swordsmen will also be the highlight of the sword conference. Brother Ning's 2 fairy swords and my Phoenix Cry sword are both very troublesome items. It is very likely that others will covet them. Therefore, this banquet will most likely not be peaceful, reminded Lin Yuzhen. I understand. Ning Chen nodded gently and looked at the pavilion within the pavilion in the distance. His eyes turned serious. He came here to repair his star soul and natal sword. He did not want to cause any trouble. He hoped that this trip would be peaceful. In the depths of the sword pavilion, in the pavilion within the pavilion, a woman in white was sitting quietly on the left side of the main seat. Below her, a swordsman's servant walked over and bowed respectfully. Third pavilion master, the 9th son of Mo clan and Prince Qi have arrived. Oh, he's finally arrived as well. A strange expression appeared on the woman's face. If the 9th son of Mo clan hadn't come, the endless sword banquet would have lost much of its splendor. Have Shinji and the 3rd guardian of the demonic gate arrived? The lady in the court dress came back to her senses and asked. No. The swordsman's servant shook his head. The woman nodded slightly. I understand. You can leave first. If anything happens, immediately report back. Yes. The swordsman's servant bowed once more before leaving. Shinji Moonweaver, you still haven't arrived? The woman stood up and looked at the scenery outside. Light flashed through her beautiful eyes. Third sister, has Prince Qi arrived? At this moment, a cold voice rang out from within the hall. He's here. The woman softly replied. It's good that he's here. The Phoenix Cry sword has been wandering outside for a long time. It's time to take it back, said the cold voice once more. Second sister. The woman sighed softly. The Phoenix Cry sword was given to us personally by the ancestral master. Logically speaking, it no longer belongs to the sword pavilion. It seems inappropriate to take it back by force. There's nothing inappropriate about it. As she spoke, the void swirled and an illusory figure appeared. Back then, it was the Emperor of Beiki who betrayed the ancestral master. The Phoenix Cry sword should be returned. The sword pavilion has been lenient for so many years. It's more than enough. Chapter 837. In Sword Pavilion, a cold moon hung high in the sky. It was a strange space of its own. It was cold and quiet. There were many small courtyards within and outside the pavilion. Sword experts from all over the continent had gathered to participate in the everlasting sword banquet. Among them, in an inconspicuous courtyard, Red Robe stood quietly pondering under the cold night sky. It was a habit she had developed over 100 years. She had to weigh the pros and cons of every action and plan for the future. If it was within her power, she couldn't fail. If it was beyond her power, she had to minimize the risk. Martial arts, wisdom, and luck were what every cultivator relied on to survive. Luck couldn't be changed, but martial arts and wisdom were determined by one's power. What are you thinking about? At some point, Lin Yuzhen's figure appeared behind him and asked softly. Ningchen came back to his senses and said, I'm thinking about what will happen when we meet Sword Pavilion's 3 pavilion masters tomorrow. Sword Pavilion used to be the head of the 4 pavilions. Sword Pavilion's 3 pavilion masters must be peak experts in the world, said Lin Yuzhen. Your Highness, it's not wrong to measure the heart of a gentleman with one's own yardstick. We need to prepare for the worst, said Ningchen. Brother Ning, do you think Sword Pavilion will harm us? Asked Lin Yuzhen. We have to be on guard against others. I've never had any dealings with Sword Pavilion, and I don't have any grudges with them. However, my past experience tells me that a knife will always stab you when you're unprepared, said Ningchen calmly. Lin Yuzhen was silent for a moment. She nodded and said, I will be careful. Brother Ning, your cultivation technique is severely restricted. You need to be more careful. Ningchen nodded and calmly agreed. The cold night was silent. When the sun rose from the east, a sword attendant respectfully bowed outside the courtyard. Honored guests, the pavilion master invites you in. Ningchen and Lin Yuzhen walked out. Please lead the way. The sword attendant stood up and led the 2 of them to a pavilion within a pavilion. There was a magnificent palace within a pavilion within a pavilion. There were 3 seats at the end of the hall. A woman in white was sitting on the leftmost seat. Her face was covered by a veil, but her eyes were like limpid autumn waters. 3rd Pavilion Master, the 2 honored guests are here. As the 3 of them walked over, the sword servant stepped forward and bowed respectfully. I understand. You can leave now, said Jing Wuxia softly. Yes. The swordsman accepted the order and turned around to leave. Your Highness Prince Qi, young Master Ning, please sit. Jing Wuxia looked at the 2 of them and said softly, Many thanks, 3rd Pavilion Master. Ningchen and Lin Yuzhen nodded, walking to the side and sitting down. Serve tea, Jing Wuxia said softly. Yes. A maidservant walked over and served tea to the 2 of them. Then she retreated. Please. Jing Wuxia raised the teacup in front of her and said softly. Ningchen and Lin Yuzhen also picked up their teacups and nodded. They took a sip and enjoyed the fragrance of the tea. Young Master Ning, Your Highness Prince Qi, how is our Sword Pavilion's Qinglan tea? Asked Jing Wuxia with a gentle smile. The aroma of tea overflows, leaving a lingering aftertaste. Lin Yuzhen praised. Ningchen put down the teacup and didn't say anything. Young Master Ning doesn't seem to like this tea very much? Jing Wuxia noticed the former's expression and asked in confusion. It's not that I dislike you. Ningchen lightly shook his head and said. I just thought of an old friend. Her tea is unparalleled in the world. I've only drunk it once, and it's still fresh in my memory. Oh. A strange light flashed in Jing Wuxia's eyes and she said. A person who can be remembered by young Master Ning must be extraordinary. I wonder if I have the chance to befriend her. I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint 3rd Pavilion Master. Ningchen forced a smile and said. The friend I'm talking about has passed away many years ago. That's a pity. Jing Wuxia sighed and said. Young Master Ning's friend must be a dragon or phoenix among men. She's worthy of this praise. Ningchen sighed. Fan Lingyue was the crown of literature and martial arts. During those 7 years, she was the true #1 person under the heavens. Thinking of an old friend, Ning Chen felt inexplicably complicated. After a while, he collected his thoughts and looked at the woman on the main seat and said, "Third Pavilion Master, I have a question. I hope Third Pavilion Master can answer it." "Please speak, young Master Ning," Jing Wuxia said softly. Ning Chen waved his hand, and two broken swords appeared amidst the flowing light. One of them was green and bright, while the other was bloody. The aura circulating them was sharp and bone-piercing. These two swords were broken in the heavenly punishment. Now that they reappeared, their auras were much weaker than before. "Can the Sword Pavilion repair these two swords?" asked Ning Chen. Jing Wuxia narrowed her eyes and looked at the two divine weapons floating in the red light. She waved her hand, and the divine weapons flew back to her. She raised her hand and lightly tapped the sword. The spirituality on the broken sword still hadn't dissipated, and was resisting the external force. Jing Wuxia's expression gradually became serious. What a powerful sword intent. It wasn't inferior to the divine swords of Sword Pavilion. "These swords can be repaired." Jing Wuxia waved her hand and returned the two divine weapons. She said seriously, "However, repairing these two swords isn't easy. Even Sword Pavilion will have to pay a great price to do it." Ning Chen narrowed his eyes and said, "Third Pavilion Master, please speak frankly." Jing Wuxia nodded and said, "This blood-red sword was forged from astral soul essence iron. It's perfect and flawless. If it's forged again, it will definitely damage the spirituality of the divine materials. So, how can we ensure that the spirituality of the divine swords remains intact and repair the broken sword? That's a big problem. As for the other sword," Jing Wuxia's tone changed and she continued, "I can see that the material isn't the best. However, the sword intent it contains is astonishing. Using blood to nourish a sword, an ordinary sword will eventually become a divine weapon. If we want to repair this sword, it will be even more difficult than the previous one." Ning Chen listened quietly. He knew that these two swords weren't easy to repair. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come here. Forging a sword requires divine materials, earth fire, and heavenly spring water. It's the same for repairing a sword. Our Sword Pavilion doesn't lack earth fire or heavenly spring water. However, the divine materials needed to repair a sword aren't that easy to obtain. Jing Wuxia looked at the man in front of him and said, "Young Master Ning, our Sword Pavilion has invited all the top swordsmen in the world to the Sword Conference banquet this time. If young Master can defeat all of them and become the champion of the Sword Conference banquet, our Sword Pavilion will agree to help young Master repair these two swords. What do you think?" Ning Chen frowned slightly and said, "What benefits will our Sword Pavilion gain by doing this? Isn't it just making a wedding dress for someone else's disciple?" Jing Wuxia smiled and said, "Young Master doesn't need to worry about this. As long as young Master becomes the champion of the Sword Conference, our Sword Pavilion will definitely fulfill our promise." Ning Chen fell silent. After a long time he nodded and said, "I will do my best." Jing Wuxia smiled and looked at Prince Qi. He said softly, "Your Highness, can you let me take a look at your Phoenix Cry sword?" Lin Yuzhen narrowed her eyes. Her aura unconsciously overflowed as she became alert. "Your Highness, please don't misunderstand. I have no ill intentions." An apologetic look flashed across Jing Wuxia's face and he said, "I just want to take a look at the difference between my ancestor's sword and the divine weapons of our Sword Pavilion. I have no other intentions." Lin Yuzhen gradually let down her guard after hearing this. She waved her left hand and the Phoenix Cry sword appeared and flew towards Jing Wuxia. "Many thanks." Jing Wuxia replied and reached out to take the divine weapon. He held the hilt and scabbard with both hands and slowly pulled out the Phoenix Cry sword. A clear Phoenix Cry resounded, and the entire Sword Pavilion was filled with multicolored light. The peerless divine weapon's edge illuminated the heavens and earth. At this moment, an illusory figure appeared in the sky. He didn't say anything and directly reached out to grab the Phoenix Cry sword. When Jing Wuxia saw this, he subconsciously leaned to the side and avoided the former's hand. "Second sister." Jing Wuxia waved his hand and returned the Phoenix Cry sword. He said softly, "The guest has been waiting for a long time. Why are you only here now?" On the seat, Lin Yuzhen took the Phoenix Cry sword and looked at the figure that appeared in the sky. A trace of seriousness flashed through her eyes. Just now this person seemed to want to snatch the sword? I was dealing with some matters and forgot the time. Third sister, you didn't neglect the guest, right? The illusory figure condensed, and a purple-robed woman walked out. Her voice was cold. Second sister, you must be joking. How would I dare to neglect the guest? Said Jing Wuxia softly. That's good. Shui Wuyue nodded and looked at the two people in front of him. He didn't say anything and disappeared once again. Jing Wuxia smiled apologetically and said, I'm sorry. Second sister doesn't like to show her face in front of outsiders. It's already not easy for her to make an exception today. I hope the two of you can forgive me. Third pavilion master, please don't be an outsider. Ning Chen shook his head and said, It's enough for second pavilion master to show up. May I know when first pavilion master will come? Jing Wuxia looked outside the pavilion and said, Big sister's cultivation is at a critical moment. A few days ago, she said that she would come out today. Please wait for a moment. As soon as he finished speaking, a powerful sword pressure soared into the sky from the depths of the sword pavilion. It was so powerful that it shocked everyone. She's out. Jing Wuxia sensed it and said with a serious expression. In the next moment, a dark red figure appeared in the hall. It was a graceful woman with a phoenix crown and a noble temperament. Although she wasn't beautiful, she had a subduing bearing. Big sister. Jing Wuxia stood up and said respectfully. Below them, Ning Chen and Lin Yuzhen also stood up and bowed politely. No need to be so polite. Mei Wuhan walked to the main seat and sat down. He looked at the two people and said calmly, Young Master Ning, Your Highness Prince Qi, welcome to my sword pavilion. First pavilion master is too polite. Ning Chen and Lin Yuzhen responded softly and looked at the woman in front of them seriously. The master of the sword pavilion actually had such a terrifying cultivation. Both of you please sit. Mei Wuhan said and looked at the woman beside him. He asked, Third sister, have you told the two guests about the requirements of the sword pavilion everlasting banquet? Not yet. Jing Wuxia shook his head and replied. Mei Wuhan nodded and said, Tell the two guests the specific requirements. Yes. Jing Wuxia nodded and said seriously, This sword everlasting banquet is divided into 3 parts. Sword evaluation, sword discussion, and sword competition. The sword evaluation is very simple. The sword evaluation is based on the quality of the sword. The sword discussion is to test the sword user's understanding of the sword and swordsmanship. As for the sword competition, I don't think I need to explain. The sword competition is based on martial arts. If you win all 3 rounds, you will be the chief. Chapter 838. At the sword garret, the Wuji sword banquet was about to begin. Streams of light flashed past, heading toward the pavilion within the pavilion. In a small courtyard far away, Ning Chen and Lin Yuzhen walked out and walked forward together. The sword conference of the world, the Wuji banquet, began again today. In the pavilion within the pavilion, rows of tables were arranged. At the top, the 3 pavilion masters of the sword garret walked out one by one. Their powerful aura was shocking. Ning Chen and Lin Yuzhen took their seats. 2 sword maids walked forward and bowed, respectfully inviting their swords. Tai Shi and Feng Ming handed over their swords. The famous swords of Taoism and Beiki appeared on the sword evaluation stage. At the main seats, the 3 pavilion masters of the sword garret sat down. Everyone stood up and bowed politely. Please have a seat. Mei Wuhan, who was in the middle of the main seats, spoke with a smile. Everyone thanked him and sat down. I'm sure everyone knows the purpose of today's banquet. The Wuji sword banquet is only for the most powerful swordsmen in the world. Everyone here is an expert swordsman from the major galaxies. I'm sure you all want to know if your sword can dominate the world, Mei Wuhan said. Below the seats, the experts from the major galaxies tasted their wine silently. The pavilion master was right. After hundreds of years of learning, everyone wanted to prove their swords. I'm sure everyone knows the rules of the Wuji sword banquet. Today, the top 20 swords will be evaluated. The top 20 will be able to view the Sword Garrett's Sword Codex for half a day and advance to tomorrow's sword tournament, Mei Wuhan continued. Everyone looked at each other in shock. The Sword Codex was the supreme sword codex of the Sword Garrett. It was rumored that it was created by a 4th-level expert and was extremely powerful. If one could cultivate it to the highest level, they would be able to step into the 4th level that all the experts in the world dreamed of. On the main seat, Mei Wuhan looked at the expressions of the people below. The smile on his face did not change as he quietly waited for everyone to calm down. Beside him, Shui Wuyue, who was dressed in a purple dress, still had a cold expression. Only when she glanced at the foaming sword on the sword evaluation stage did her expression change. On the other side, Jing Wuxia sat there quietly. Her gentle temperament attracted the attention of many experts. The 3 pavilion masters of the Sword Firmament Pavilion each had their own strengths. The first pavilion master was graceful and dignified. He was undoubtedly the strongest among the 3 pavilion masters. As for the second pavilion master, Shui Wuyue, although her appearance was incomparably beautiful, her temperament was extremely cold. She rarely spoke and would not smile at anyone, so no one dared to approach her. The third pavilion master, Jing Wuxia, was the most attractive among the 3 pavilion masters. Her temperament was gentle, and even the veil covering her face could not hide her peerless demeanor. She was the most eye-catching. After a brief commotion, the experts gradually calmed down. They looked at the 3 pavilion masters on the main seats. This time, they were no longer as indifferent as before. Sitting in the 3rd row, Ningchen quietly drank the wine in his cup. His calm expression did not change at all, as if he was not moved by the words of the master of the sword pavilion. Lin Yuzhen narrowed her eyes as she looked at Shui Wuyue. She had a feeling that the second pavilion master of the Sword Firmament Pavilion cared a lot about the Phoenix Cry Sword. If no one has any objections, then the Limitless Sword Banquet will now begin, said Mei Wuhan. Wait. At this moment, a white-robed man said, the Limitless Sword Banquet is a competition of swords. I think the Sword Pavilion won't hold back. I heard that the Sword Pavilion has several divine swords. Why don't you take them out to compete with the world's famous swords? The Heavenly Miss Starfield's sword god by you. Everyone looked over and recognized him. He was the Heavenly Miss Starfield's strongest swordsman. His cultivation base and attainments in the sword were unfathomable. He had never been defeated in his life. Sword god by you's words are reasonable. Mei Wuhan nodded. Since it's a competition of swords, the Sword Pavilion should not be an exception. Wuyue, place your sunset sword on the sword evaluation stage. Wuyue frowned, but she didn't say anything. She waved her hand, and an ancient sword that had been hidden in its scabbard appeared. It flew toward the sword evaluation stage. The world's famous swords had gathered, and the sword evaluation stage was filled with multicolored light. The auras of swords that had been unsheathed were circulating. Everyone, let's begin, said Mei Wuhan calmly. Baiyu raised her hand, and a silver-white sword was unsheathed. The instant the sword appeared, the world around it froze. Endless cold chi surged, sealing the world. Clear sky, forged from divine white frost gold. Please evaluate it, said Baiyu calmly. All the swordsmen looked at the unsheathed divine sword on the sword evaluation stage. Their eyes flashed with extraordinary splendor. They had heard of the famous sword Clear Sky for a long time. A sword of the highest quality. Wuyue Shui said indifferently. He didn't say anything else. Everyone nodded. This sword was indeed extraordinary. No matter if it was the sword's quality or the sword itself, there was nothing to nitpick about. No one could say anything about it entering the next round. Clear Sky returned to its scabbard and landed back on the sword evaluation stage. The second sword flew up. It was also an extraordinary sword. Waves of fire burned, causing the temperature of the stage to rise several times. Ruohuo. The second person was a red-robed woman. She didn't say anything else after she said the sword's name. The Zhurong family's divine sword. All the swordsmen's expressions changed. The Zhurong family was located in a remote area and had been in seclusion for a long time. They hadn't expected that they would be invited by Sword Pavilion. A sword of the highest quality. Jing Wuxia softly said from the main seat. It's rare for third sister to evaluate swords. It seems this Ruohuo has caught third sister's attention. Mei Wuhan looked over with a smile. Big sister, my attainments in the sword are limited, so I didn't dare to embarrass myself. However, this Ruohuo divine sword doesn't lose to clear sky. It's worthy of being called a sword of the highest quality, said Jing Wuxia warmly. Mei Wuhan nodded and smiled. He didn't make any more comments. Like Ruohuo returned to its scabbard, the next swordsman raised his sword. He was also one of the strongest swordsmen in the world, and his sword was a rarely seen divine weapon. One divine weapon after another was unsheathed in front of everyone, causing the atmosphere of the everlasting sword banquet to reach its peak. Sword of the highest quality. Sword of the highest quality. Words of evaluation determined the quality of the sword. Not long after, the evaluation reached the phoenix cry. The instant the sword was unsheathed, the entire hall was shocked. The divine sword shined with red light, and the cries of the phoenix rang out. It was a peerless divine weapon. On the right side of the main seat, Shui Wuyue stood up and looked at the phoenix cry sword floating in the air. Second sister. Mei Wuhan reminded in an indifferent tone. Hearing this, Shui Wuyue suppressed the ripples in his heart and sat down. However, his eyes never left the phoenix cry sword above the sword evaluation platform. A heavenly grade sword, said Mei Wuhan. This was the first time a heavenly grade sword had appeared since the start of the sword banquet. It was a divine weapon that surpassed the highest quality, and it made everyone's hearts tremble for a long time. In the next moment, the phoenix cry returned to its scabbard, and the divine sword returned to the sword banquet. Beside Lin Yuzhen, Ning Chen smiled. There was no doubt that the phoenix cry sword had been selected, so there was no need to congratulate King Qi. Brother Ning, it's your turn, said Lin Yuzhen softly. Ning Chen nodded and raised his right hand. On the sword banquet, Genesis Prime was unsheathed. Azure light blossomed, and the famous sword of the Taoist gate appeared once more. After the shock of the phoenix cry, everyone's expressions didn't change much when they saw the Genesis Prime sword. They nodded to express their approval. A sword of the highest quality. Jing Wuxia once more evaluated. With this evaluation, Genesis Prime returned to its scabbard. However, just as the sword descended, a discordant voice came from the banquet. Rumor has it that Mo Gate's ninth son has two immortal swords. Why didn't he take them out for everyone to see? Sitting in the first row, a blue-robed swordsman had his back to the crowd. He was sipping wine as he spoke. In the end it still came. Ning Chen sighed inwardly. As expected, he couldn't avoid trouble. The blue-robed swordsman's words caused everyone to look over. Everyone knew the name of the immortal sword, but very few people had seen the appearance of the immortal sword. Why do you think I should take out the immortal sword? The sword belongs to me. Whether I take it out or not shouldn't be your concern. Trouble had come knocking, so Ning Chen's expression turned cold. The blue-robed swordsman turned his head. The wine cup in his hand trembled, and the wine transformed into a sword that pierced through the air. When the water sword arrived, Ning Chen's eyes turned cold. His protective sword Qi transformed into a barrier in front of him, blocking the water sword with a boom. It's impolite not to reciprocate. Sir, please. Ning Chen wasn't someone who was good at enduring, and he didn't plan on enduring any longer. He slammed the table with his right hand, and the wine cup flew into the air. The wine turned into mist, and the formless sword rapidly shot out. The blue-robed swordsman's eyes narrowed. His cultivation technique erupted, and his true Qi surged to block the formless sword. Rip. Sword Qi tore through the air, and a bloody mark appeared on the blue-robed swordsman's face. It was very eye-catching. You're courting death. The blue-robed swordsman was furious after being humiliated in front of everyone. He slammed the table and got up to attack. What kind of place do you think my sword pavilion is? At this moment, Mei Wuhan's expression was indifferent. His aura revolved, and a terrifying pressure swept out, shocking everyone present. The blue-robed swordsman who was just about to get up felt his body sink. With a thump, he fell down once more, unable to move. Ning Chen looked at the master of the sword pavilion, and a serious light flashed through his eyes. This first pavilion master's strength was definitely not inferior to Qi Kuanglan's. He might even be more terrifying. Let's continue with the sword evaluation. Next, said Mei Wuhan indifferently. After this display of power, the experts all chose to keep quiet. With the great pavilion master of the sword pavilion present, anyone who wanted to cause trouble would have to consider their own strength. The sword evaluation continued. One divine item after another appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Just as the final divine item returned to the sword evaluation platform, Mei Wuhan frowned slightly. Third sister, did the master of the violet firmament and the inverted water moon not come? No. Jing Wuxia shook her head. I've already sent sword attendants to deliver sword invitations to the Moon Weaver Maiden and Shinji. But for some reason, neither of them came. Mei Wuhan's eyes flashed with a strange light. He didn't ask any more questions and just nodded. During the banquet, Ningchen listened to their conversation. He silently drank without saying anything. He didn't know why Shinji hadn't come, but it was impossible for the Moon Weaver Maiden to come. The inverted water moon had been injured by a mortal execution, and it wouldn't be healed in a short time. Since that's the case, third sister, you can announce the results of the sword evaluation, said Mei Wuhan. Yes. Jing Wuxia stood up. Wait a moment. Just at this moment, Sword Qi soared from within Sword Pavilion. An ancient sword pierced through the air. The supreme intent on the sword was shocking. The final sword, Heavenly Tower. Chapter 839. At the end of the Sword Pavilion's sword evaluation, Sword Sovereign appeared and Heavenly Tower broke through the air, startling all the experts present. His black robes were simple yet noble. The Heavenly Manor Swordsman had appeared once more. He was a peerless expert with sharp eyes. An old friend came and sat at the table. Ning Chun was surprised at first, but he soon regained his composure. He stood up and bowed, his expression respectful. Senior revered sword. Mu Chang'e nodded and walked to the front of the table. He looked at the three pavilion masters and calmly said, Pavilion masters, it's not too late to participate in the sword evaluation, right? The results haven't been announced yet, so it's not too late, said Mei Wuhan. That's good. Mu Chang'e waved his hand, and Heavenly Tower was unsheathed. A strange sound echoed within Sword Pavilion as Heavenly Tower appeared once more. The divine sword's strange appearance attracted everyone's attention. The three pavilion masters' eyes also flashed. What a good Heavenly Tower! A heaven-grade sword. Mei Wuhan gave his evaluation when the second heaven-grade sword appeared. Ning Chen narrowed his eyes as he looked at the divine sword on the sword evaluation platform. It seemed that Sword Sovereign had not only made a breakthrough in his cultivation in the past 100 years, but he had also reforged Heavenly Tower. Heavenly Tower returned to its scabbard, and the strange appearance disappeared. Mu Chang'e turned and sat not far from Ning Chen. After the sword evaluation ended, everyone waited for the results. Jing Wuxia stood up and waved her hand. Divine weapons flew out of the sword evaluation platform one after another. The rankings were immediately determined. In the first place, the Phoenix Cry sword was undeniably number 1. Next was the Sunset Sword of the Second Pavilion Master and Tingtian Quebec. Then, the Taisher Sword unexpectedly surpassed the Clear Sky Sword of the Bayou Sword God, and was ranked 4th. It was a famous sword of Taoism and a low-profile divine weapon. Today it finally showed its power. Clear Sky and Ruoho were ranked 5th and 6th respectively. Behind them were the divine weapons brought by the various Starfield's experts. The difference in quality between their swords was very small, so their rankings were very close. The top 20 were listed one by one. Those who had entered were gratified, while those who had failed were sad. Tomorrow, we'll be holding a sword competition here. Friends ranked in the top 20, please don't forget the time. As for other friends, I hope you'll be able to bear witness. Sword Pavilion will definitely reward you generously, said Mei Wuhan calmly. Hearing this, everyone stood up and bowed politely. One by one, the swordsmen left their seats and walked out of the hall. The top 20 swordsmen stayed in the hall, waiting for the Sword Pavilion to fulfill their promise. On the main seats, Mei Wuhan and Shui Wuyue stood up and left, no longer interfering in the following matters. After the two pavilion masters left, Jing Wuxia walked down the hall and said softly, "Everyone please follow me." The 19 swordsmen followed him and walked toward the back of the sword pavilion. After walking for about a quarter of an hour, Jing Wuxia stopped in front of a towering cave. He turned around and looked at everyone with a gentle expression. "Everyone, this is the place where the sword manuals are engraved. When the sun sets, I will come to pick you up. Please cherish your time inside." After saying that, Jing Wuxia didn't say anything else and went back the way he came. After a few steps, Jing Wuxia hesitated for a moment before stopping and whispering, "Young Master Ning, please be careful." Hearing the reminder, Ning Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. Just as he was about to ask, the person beside him had already walked away. "What happened?" Lin Yuzhen asked from the side. "I'm not sure. The third pavilion master reminded us to be careful," said Ning Chen. Lin Yuzhen turned around and looked at the third pavilion master who was walking away. A strange light flashed in her eyes. What did the third pavilion master mean? Why did he remind them? "Your Highness, the second pavilion master has been paying attention to the Phoenix Cry Sword. I'm sure your Highness has already noticed," said Ning Chen. "Yes." Lin Yuzhen nodded and said, "When the third pavilion master said that he wanted to see the Phoenix Cry Sword, the second pavilion master seemed to want to snatch it. The relationship between the three pavilion masters shouldn't be as harmonious as it seems." As the two spoke, the door of the sword cave was pushed open. With a rumbling sound, an abnormally powerful sword intent spread out. It was ancient and heavy, making people feel small. Everyone focused and walked into the sword cave step by step. In the dim sword cave, a few luminous pearls shone with a gentle light, illuminating the sword cave. "Let's go." Outside the sword cave, Mu Chang'e glanced at the two before walking into the sword cave. Lin Yuzhen looked at the black-clothed man in front of her thoughtfully. She had never heard of this person before, but he knew Lord Ning. It was really strange. Senior Sword Venerable is from the Ziwei Galaxy. He has always kept a low profile. It's normal that your Highness doesn't know him. Ning Chen could see what Lin Yuzhen was thinking and replied, "Lord Ning, are you also from the Ziwei Galaxy? I have never asked about your background," said Lin Yuzhen softly. "No." Ning Chen shook his head and said, "Your Highness, you are my friend. I don't want to lie to you. It's just that my background has too many implications. It's best if fewer people know about it. Your Highness, please don't ask anymore. I was too rash." Lin Yuzhen looked apologetic and said, "Brother Ning, please don't take offense. It's fine." Ning Chen replied softly and walked towards the sword cave. He said, "Your Highness, let's go in. It's a rare opportunity." "Yes." Lin Yuzhen nodded and followed him. The sword cave was dim. The luminous pearls embedded along the way couldn't illuminate the sword cave too much. Not long after they entered, they could feel the endless heavy sword pressure from the depths of the sword cave, making it harder for them to move forward. "There's something carved on the stone wall." After walking for a while, Lin Yuzhen looked at the stone wall not far away and said. When Ning Chen heard this, he also looked over and walked closer to take a closer look. In the dim light, he could vaguely see the broken murals on the stone wall. They were arranged messily without any order and were dazzling. This should be the Sword Codex. After observing for a long time, Ning Chen said with a serious expression. It was no wonder that the sword pavilion allowed outsiders to come in and look at such a messy sword technique. If they didn't cultivate this technique properly, it wouldn't be strange if they directly went berserk. Can this sword codex really be cultivated? Lin Yuzhen looked at the broken murals and asked. The sword pavilion wouldn't go so far as to use a fake sword codex to deceive everyone. Everyone here is at the peak of the sword realm in the various galaxies. They can see the clues at a glance. The sword codex should be these murals. However, it's really difficult for ordinary people to see how to cultivate it, said Ning Chen. Brother Ning, did you see anything? Asked Lin Yuzhen. Not yet. Ning Chen memorized the murals on the stone wall one by one. He only had half a day, so he didn't have time to think about it carefully. He had to memorize it first. To the side, Lin Yuzhen watched as Ning Chen's gaze moved around. Was he able to memorize something so quickly? For nearly 4 hours, Ning Chen didn't say a word. He focused on memorizing the murals on the stone wall, one by one. No matter if they were incomplete, he didn't miss a single one. Lin Yuzhen followed beside him, and the shock in her eyes grew stronger. She knew that this young master Ning wasn't an arrogant person. Since he dared to walk forward so quickly, it meant he had memorized all the murals. These weren't ordinary words or scriptures. The moves on these murals were so complicated that they gave people a headache. Even geniuses with photographic memory would find it difficult to memorize more than a few of them. After 4 hours, Ning Chen finally stopped and rubbed his aching temples. He closed his eyes and said tiredly, "Your Highness, can you help me see how many murals are left?" Lin Yuzhen looked behind and said, "There are about 3,000 murals left." Ning Chen nodded. Then there weren't many left. Sword Pavilion's sword manuals were so complicated that they gave people a headache. "Brother Ning, if you're too tired you can rest," said Lin Yuzhen softly. "There's no time." Ning Chen shook his head. "It'll be sunset soon. I'm fine. Your Highness, please help guard the surroundings. That third pavilion master told us to be careful. He should be hinting at something." "All right." Lin Yuzhen nodded. After resting for a moment, Ning Chen didn't dare waste any more time. He continued to memorize the moves on the stone wall. Time slowly passed, and the 6th hour was about to end. Outside, the sun was setting. Half a day had passed. In front of the sword cave, Wuxia walked over. He looked at the setting sun in the west and stopped. Time was almost up. He hoped nothing had happened to those two. Within the sword cave, there were thousands of murals on the stone walls. The 19-peak sword experts were looking at them as they walked deeper into the cave. The sword pressure was getting heavier and heavier, making it hard for them to breathe. Ning Chen was memorizing the murals. At some point, his red robes were completely soaked. It was as if he had experienced an intense battle. To the side, Lin Yuzhen was worried. She knew that memorizing these complex and incomplete sword moves would consume a great deal of spiritual sense. It definitely wasn't an easy task. At the same time, Mei Wuhan was standing in an illusory space above Sword Pavilion. His eyes were closed as he comprehended the sword. At this moment, space stirred and an incomparably cold figure walked out. She looked at the person in front of her and indifferently said, "Big sister, why did you let those people enter the sword cave? Are you really not worried about the sword manual's moves being leaked?" "What is there to worry about?" Mei Wuhan opened his eyes. "Second sister should know how difficult it is to cultivate the sword manuals. We have cultivated for hundreds of years, but we still haven't completely comprehended them. Those people can only see the sword moves, but they don't have the sword manuals. If they force themselves to cultivate, they will only suffer a cultivation deviation and be consigned to eternal damnation." Mei Wuhan didn't continue speaking. He looked at Lin Yuzhen and indifferently said, "What about third sister? Half a day should be up. It's time to bring them out." "Third sister has already gone," Shui Wuyue responded. His figure gradually faded and disappeared from the illusory space. Outside the sword cave, the sun was setting in the west. Wuxia let out a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to enter the sword cave, his expression suddenly changed. At this moment, tens of thousands of swords crisscrossed within the sword cave. An incomparably powerful sword pressure spread out. Wave after wave of sword intent surged, shaking the entire sword pavilion. In the deepest part of the sword cave, in front of the last 3 murals, a red-robed figure flew out and crashed into the stone wall behind him. He vomited a mouthful of blood, dyeing the ground red. Chapter 840. In the depths of the sword cave, his clothes were dyed red with blood, dripping onto the ground. Lin Yuzhen's expression changed, and she arrived beside him in a flash. "How are you?" "I'm fine." Ning Chen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and struggled to get up. He looked at the last 3 murals in front of him, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. Sword Pavilion's sword cannon was truly worthy of its reputation. This trip had been worth it. In the distance, at the top of the sword pavilion, in the illusory space, Mei Wuhan felt the changes in the sword cavern, and his face sank. He took a step forward and disappeared. Dark red light converged in front of the sword cave, and Mei Wuhan walked out. After several flashes, he arrived at the depths of the sword cave. Inside the sword cave, the peak swordsmen all looked at the flashing figure with strange expressions. Why had the sword pavilion's first pavilion master also come? In the depths of the sword cave, Lin Yuzhen helped Ning Chen up. At this moment, her gaze narrowed as she looked at the two figures behind her. A breath later, Mei Wuhan stopped and looked at the two figures in front of her. She narrowed her eyes and smiled. So it's Prince Qi and Prince Ning. How are you? Are you injured? Thank you for your concern, First Pavilion Master. I was just shocked. It's nothing serious, said Ning Chen with a smile. That's good. Mei Wuhan nodded and said, Third sister, bring these guests out. Yes. Jing Wuxia walked over and softly replied. The two of you should go back and rest. I hope to see the two of you shine in the sword competition tomorrow. Mei Wuhan smiled as he spoke, and then he didn't say anything further before his figure faded and vanished from the sword cavern. The two of you, please. Jing Wuxia walked over with a gentle expression. Ning Chen and Lin Yuzhen nodded, and then they strode out. Outside the sword cave, the sun was setting in the west. Jing Wuxia brought everyone out, and waved her hand to close the sword cave's stone door. She softly said, Everyone, it's already late. Please go back and rest. Everyone nodded and glanced at the sword cave behind them before walking away. Let's go too. Ning Chen didn't want to delay any longer due to his injuries. Lin Yuzhen nodded and left with him. In front of the sword cavern, Jing Wuxia looked at the backs of the two people as worry flashed across his limpid eyes. The sun set, and the cold moon rose from the east. Night fell on the earth. Looking from afar, the pavilion within the pavilion seemed even more majestic, like a divine sword that would be unsheathed at any time. It made people feel cold all over. In a small courtyard in the distance, a red light rose. Lin Yuzhen's true essence surged, helping the person in front of her heal. After a long time, Ning Chen opened his eyes and suppressed the surging phoenix origin in his body. He said, Thank you, Your Highness. What's going on? Lin Yuzhen withdrew her hand and asked. Ning Chen stood up and looked at the pavilion in the distance. A light flashed in his eyes. He waved his right hand and activated the yellow springs. Layer after layer of strange light rose up, blocking the laws of heaven and earth and blocking the prying gazes from afar. Your Highness, look carefully. I will show you the sword moves that I have memorized. With a wave of his hand, Taisha appeared. Ning Chen gripped his sword and moved. His red clothes were like a shadow, and his sword was like a graceful swan. The sword manual appeared again. It was hard to tell whether it was real or fake. The amazing sword manual reappeared today. He abandoned his true chi and only kept his sword moves. Each move returned to its essence, returning to its original state. At the side, Lin Yuzhen looked at the sword and became more and more shocked. So this was the legendary sword manual? When the sword reached the extreme, it could go against the flow and kill immortals. It was rumored that the sword manual could break through the fourth realm. In just half a day, Ning Chen had seen through its mysteries. The 9,900 murals proved the extreme. Ning Chen's figure moved faster and faster. Wind and thunder rumbled on his sword. The heavens descended, and all things were destroyed. He used the final three moves as if they were light. The moment the sword tip passed through the gap, the sky split open, and a terrifying crack appeared across the world. Taisha returned to its scabbard and disappeared in an instant. Ning Chen looked at the woman in men's clothes in front of him and said, Your Highness, did you see it clearly? Lin Yuzhen recovered from her shock and nodded with a complicated look in her eyes. She sighed and said, The sword manual that the world's experts can't understand even a little. Brother Ning only used half a day to comprehend it. I admire you. Your Highness is too kind. Ning Chen smiled calmly and said, High comprehension ability is one of the few advantages I can bring out. Brother Ning's injury just now must be related to this sword manual, right? Lin Yuzhen said. She and the other experts who entered the sword cave had seen the last 3 murals, but they were safe and sound. Only Brother Ning had an accident after seeing it. There must be something strange about it. Yes. Ningchen nodded and said. I didn't understand the first 9,000 murals at first. I just memorized them by force. When I saw the last 3 murals, the moves I memorized before were verified one by one. Only then did I understand a little. However, because my mind was exhausted, the true qi in my body backfired and I was injured. No wonder so many top sword experts from the major starfields couldn't understand this sword manual. There is almost no one else in the world who can memorize all 9,900 murals like Brother Ning. Lin Yuzhen sighed with emotion. Fate was fair after all. Brother Ning's aptitude was indeed not much, but his wisdom and comprehension were really terrifying. It was hard to believe. Just as the two of them were talking, Mei Wuhan stood quietly on the highest floor of the pavilion in the distance. She looked at the void sealed by the restriction in the distance, and her eyes flashed. The commotion in the sword cave before this was undoubtedly because someone had comprehended the sword manual. The 9th son of Mo sect was the closest to the last 3 murals at that time. It was most likely him. She didn't pay too much attention to the various rumors about this kid earlier. Even though this person had schemed against the various Do Qi practitioners in the ancient battlefield, it was truly not worth mentioning in her opinion. She could kill all those people with a wave of her hand. However, the incident that occurred in the sword cave today caused her to have no choice but to pay attention to this kid. At the same time, in the Watermoon Hall, the second pavilion master of the sword pavilion stood in front of the window. She was also looking at the inconspicuous small courtyard in the distance. Her beautiful face was still cold, and there was no emotion in it. Second sister. Jing Wuxia walked over, looked at the woman in front of the window, and called out softly, "What's the matter?" Wu Yueshui did not turn around. Second sister, can you stop fighting for the Phoenix Cry sword? After all, this sword is no longer inferior to our sword pavilion. Jing Wuxia advised. Third sister, did you come here to talk about this? You can go back now. Wu Yueshui said indifferently. Jing Wuxia sighed softly. She knew that talking about this matter would not change the former's mind. She changed the topic and said, Second sister, you should know about what happened in the sword cave today, right? Yes. Wu Yueshui replied indifferently. Second sister, don't you have anything to ask? Jing Wuxia asked softly. What is there to ask? Wu Yueshui turned around and looked at the person in front of her. She said, the sword manual cannot be leaked. This is the rule. I don't think I need to tell you what will happen to the person who comprehended the sword manual. Third sister, do you think a person who is about to die is worth my concern? Jing Wuxia was silent. After a moment she softly said, Second sister, the person who comprehended the sword manual was the 9th son of Mahis sect. This person is on good terms with Prince Qi. Moreover, the swordsman who came today clearly has a relationship with this person. These 3 are true experts of the human world. Our sword pavilion cannot easily provoke them. Third sister, since when have you been so concerned about sword pavilion? Wu Yueshui coldly said. She turned around again and looked at the cold night outside the window. She said indifferently, Third sister, listen to second sister's advice. There are some things that cannot be changed just because you want to. Sword pavilion has been passed down for tens of thousands of years. Ruthlessness has long been ingrained in our bones. How can it be changed by you alone? Leave. Second sister is tired and needs to rest. When Jing Wuxia heard this, she sighed once more. She did not say anything else. She gracefully bowed and left. Under the cold moon, a black-robed swordsman walked towards a small courtyard. His cold face had not changed at all compared to 100 years ago. He was calm and indifferent. Senior venerated sword. Ning Chen respectfully bowed in front of the small courtyard. You still haven't entered the immortal treading realm? Mu Chang'e walked into the small courtyard and directly asked without beating around the bush. Ning Chen gently shook his head. No. I knew that this step would be very difficult for you. I didn't expect that you would still be unable to succeed at this stage. Mu Chang'e softly sighed and continued. Take out your sword. Ning Chen was startled, but he soon came back to his senses. He waved his right hand, and with a burst of azure light, Genesis Supreme appeared and fell into his hand. The Heavenly Sanctum sword art has a total of 10 moves. Sword 1 to Sword 10 were passed down orally by the Heavenly Sanctum sword sovereigns. You have already seen them. After Sword 10 there are no fixed moves. You can only rely on your own comprehension. As he spoke, the Heavenly Tower appeared in Mu Chang'e's hand. A surge of sword will rose. The stupa began, and the fairy slaying ended. The first sword to the 10th sword evolved in the illusion. When the 10th sword ended, there were no more sword moves. The sword chi filled the sky, and the 11th sword suddenly appeared. The perfect sword was endless, without beginning or end. It crisscrossed and drowned the entire world. Sword 11 was comprehended in my battle with Alcade King. It is to use one's cultivation to activate sword chi. After perfectly fusing them, one can reach the peak of human strength. However, at this point, Mu Chang'e's tone changed, and the sword chi that filled the sky changed as well, rapidly converging from all directions. In my battle with the legendary swordsman of the Divine Lands, Sword 11 was defeated for the first time. Therefore, I went into seclusion to comprehend a higher level of sword technique. As she finished speaking, the sword chi that filled the sky returned, becoming formless. A bright sword radiance spiraled up, so dazzling. Where the sword reached, there was no end. There was only a sword intent that surpassed the peak. Sword 12 appeared, and wherever the sword pressed down, heaven and earth disintegrated. The terrifying sword intent filled the air, without beginning or end. It was endless. Not far away, Ning Chen looked at the spiraling sword intent in front of him, and his expression became unusually serious. In the next moment, the sword intent dissipated, and the divine sword returned to its scabbard. Mu Chang'e waved her hand and kept Heavenly Tower. Without another word, she turned and left. Junior Ning Chen thanks Senior Heavenly Sword Sovereign. Behind her, Ning Chen bowed respectfully. He would never dare to forget the favor of teaching him. He would engrave it in his heart. In the night, the Heavenly Sword Sovereign's figure disappeared into the distance. After a few breaths, he disappeared. Ning Chen straightened his body and looked ahead. A tinge of emotion flashed across his eyes. People like Mu Bai, the legend of the Xia dynasty, and the Heavenly Sword Sovereign were true swordsmen. They were obsessed with the sword their entire lives. Compared to them, his sword was no longer pure. Chapter 841. It was a cold night in a small courtyard. Hong Yi wielded his sword from the first sword to the 10th sword, and then to the 11th sword. The crisscrossing sword energy permeated the entire forbidden underworld. Outside the forbidden underworld, the sun rose from the east. The second round of the Wuji sword banquet was about to begin. The swordsmen would compete with each other to determine their swordsmanship. In a pavilion within a pavilion, swordsmen from various domains arrived and took their seats. In a small courtyard far away, Lin Yuzhen stood outside the forbidden underworld, quietly waiting for the former to come out. As the first rays of the morning sun shone, the forbidden underworld dissipated. Hong Yi walked out. His sword energy converged and disappeared without a trace. Your Highness, let's go, Ning Chen said and walked out of the courtyard. Lin Yuzhen nodded and followed him. In a pavilion within a pavilion, the top 20 swordsmen had all gathered. The atmosphere became unusually quiet as the sword competition began. On the main seats, the 3 pavilion masters of the sword pavilion had arrived. The 3 of them each had their own merits and were undoubtedly the focus of everyone present. I'm sure everyone knows the rules of this round. Be it sword manuals or sword insights, you can take them all out. The top 10 can enter the sword domain of my sword pavilion to cultivate for half a day and advance to the final round, Mei Wuhan said with a smile. Sword domain. Everyone looked at each other. It was the first time they had heard of this place. Mei Wuhan looked at the crowd in front of him and explained with a smile. The sword domain is the place where the pavilion masters of the sword pavilion comprehended their swordsmanship. There will be a large amount of sword precepts left inside, which should be helpful to everyone. Hearing the former's words, the swordsmen from various galaxies were shocked. Rumor had it that the sword pavilion had once produced a swordsman of the fourth realm. Didn't that mean that the sword domain also contained the insights of the swordsman of the fourth realm? This was more precious than the swordsmanship manual. Looking at the expressions of the people in front of him, Mei Wuhan smiled with satisfaction and said, "Everyone, time is up. Let's start with the first place of the previous round, His Highness Prince Qi." As the pavilion master spoke, the crowd quieted down. Lin Yuzhen's eyes flashed. She stood up and flipped her hand. Half of the sword manual appeared and slowly flew into the air. The royal family of Beiqi's unique skill, the wind and rain sword of landscape. This half of the manual is the general outline of the sword technique. As he spoke, the sword manual was unfolded. Strange light flourished, and words and diagrams appeared one after another, reflected in everyone's eyes. The swordsman, the monarch of 100 weapons, the wind and dust 3 feet sword, the nation's military uniform, obtained my wind and rain sword, the nation in my heart, did not disappoint. In front of the sword manual, there was a general outline of the sword. It was the supreme sword art left behind by the first emperor of Beiqi. Today it appeared in front of everyone. The emperor's magnanimity and knowledge were shocking. Heaven-grade sword art. The emperor's sword was majestic and boundless. Without a doubt, it was the peak cultivation method of the present age. Mei Wuhan opened his mouth and set the grade of the sword manual. Below, the crowd nodded without any objections. Lin Yuzhen waved her hand, put away the sword manual, and sat back down. Under his seat, Mu Chang'e stood up on his own. As he walked, his sword intent soared. 10 steps forward, the 10 styles of the heavenly abode appeared. Sword of Superior. Mei Wuhan commented. She could tell that Qin Wentian was still holding back. However, with these 10 stances, it was sufficient for him to advance to the final round. On the right side of the main seat, Xue Wuyue sat there quietly. His eyes were cold and emotionless. Next, it's our sword pavilion's turn. The cultivation methods of the sword pavilion's pavilion masters are all sword manuals. Everyone has seen it yesterday. What is the grade? Everyone, please comment. Mei Wuhan said with a smile. During the banquet, the swordsmen stared. It was indeed difficult to judge. They couldn't understand the sword manual yesterday. However, the sword pavilion's pavilion masters had reached the 4th realm, which meant that this sword manual was definitely an incredible cultivation method. Heaven-grade sword art. Sword god Baiyu from the Sky Mist Star Zone, who sat at the head of the table, said calmly, "I agree." The woman in red from the Zhurong family also expressed her opinion. "I agree. I agree." Everyone responded and determined the grade of the sword manual. Ningchen quietly drank the wine in his cup. After a while, he stood up and stepped forward. Everyone focused their attention, waiting for the former's brilliance. The next moment, a shocking scene occurred. Brilliance rose around the body of the red figure. In 10 steps, the Buddha was the beginning and the fairy slaying was the end. It was the reappearance of the heavenly abode sword art. Sitting down, the swordsmen looked at each other, unable to hide the shock in their eyes. On the head of the table, Mei Wuhan frowned slightly. 2 people, the same sword manual. This was the first time such a situation had occurred. Since it's exactly the same, there's no need to think too much. Next to him, Xue Wuyue said indifferently. Below, everyone nodded. This was indeed the only way. Sitting at the banquet, Mu Chang'e nodded without leaving a trace. To be able to comprehend the heavenly abode sword art to this extent in one night, this boy's comprehension was really terrifying. In front of the banquet, Ningchen walked back to his original position and sat down again. He calmly picked up his wine cup and continued to watch. Next to him, Lin Yuzhen's face flashed with a touch of helplessness. This brother Ning was really calm. He didn't care about what others thought. Sword god Baiyu stood up from the head of the table. This time he didn't take out the sword manual. With a wave of his right hand, a scabbard appeared. The scabbard was black, and sword marks crisscrossed. This is my sword technique. The sword must have the elegance of unsheathing it, but it must also have the boldness of sheathing it, said sword god Baiyu. On the scabbard, sword marks crisscrossed. Unsheathing and sheathing the sword were two simple moves, but they had been tempered millions of times before finally becoming one. Below, everyone quieted down. This sword god Baiyu had once again given everyone a big problem. This sword was difficult to judge. Heaven-grade sword. Ning Chen spoke calmly for the first time during the banquet. Hearing this, everyone frowned. Heaven-grade? Was it too much? Heaven-grade sword. Not far from them, Mu Chang'e also spoke indifferently. After the two of them spoke, the swordsman's expressions became serious. They carefully considered this. Sword god Baiyu's gaze swept over the two of them. He no longer looked down on them. These two people's sword techniques had already been evaluated to be high grade. For them to evaluate his sword as heaven grade meant that he was ranked above them. There were only 10 people in total who could advance to the final round. A difference of one rank could be the difference between heaven and earth. Putting everything else aside, these two people's magnanimity was worthy of his respect. The sword was a killing weapon, but it was also the weapon of a gentleman. Only a straightforward and upright person could attain the highest level of the sword. In the silent banquet, no one spoke again. Lin Yuzhen glanced at the person beside her. After a moment of silence she spoke, I agree. Heaven-grade sword. Her attainments in the sword were inferior to his, but she believed in his judgment. When the third person spoke out, the swordsmen's hearts were once again stirred. They struggled even more. Heaven-grade. On the main seat, Xue Wuyue coldly said 2 words and didn't say anything else. When Sword Pavilion's second pavilion master spoke out, everyone sighed inwardly. They no longer hesitated and gently nodded in agreement. At the beginning of the sword competition, there were already 3 heaven-grade swordsmen. 2 of them were high-grade swordsmen. Sitting at the banquet, the pressure on everyone increased. Only the top 10 were chosen. These 5 people were basically guaranteed to advance. This meant that their chances weren't high. During the banquet, the red-clothed girl walked out with the Zhurong family's sword manual. Once again, she took the title of high-grade sword. Next, one after another, powerful swordsmen participated in the sword conference with their sword skills or sword comprehension. Half a day passed quickly, and the sword conference gradually came to an end. Third sister, you announced the results. On the main seat, Mei Wuhan spoke with a smile. Jing Wuxia nodded. He stood up and looked at everyone with a gentle expression. It's hard to determine the top 3, so they're tied at the top. The top 3 are Prince Qi's Wind and Rain Sword Technique, Sword Pavilion's Sword Manual, and Sword God Baiyu's Sword Technique. After he finished speaking, Jing Wuxia shifted his gaze to the red-robed young man and said, the 4th and 5th contestants are from the same sect. Everyone should have guessed that they are the Tianfu swordplay of Mr. Ning and the Tianfu swordmaster. The 6th is Miss Zhurong's Skyfire sword technique. The 7th is, one name after another was announced. The competition for the top 10 was very intense. Those whose names were mentioned heaved a sigh of relief, while the others sighed with regret. After announcing the rankings, a gentle smile appeared on Jing Wuxia's face that was covered by a veil. She said, everyone, tomorrow will be the final battle of swords. The champion of the endless sword banquet will be decided. I hope everyone can come and witness it. Definitely. Below, everyone suppressed their emotions. They didn't want to lose their composure and nodded in agreement. After the sword competition ended, everyone didn't want to stay any longer. They stood up and bowed before leaving the banquet. On the main seat, Mei Wuhan stood up and left. Jing Wuxia looked at the purple-clothed girl hesitantly. In the end he couldn't help but say, second sister, I hope you can seriously consider what I said yesterday. Hearing this, Wu Yueshui's expression was still as cold as ice. He didn't respond. Jing Wuxia sighed and could only stand up and leave. After Mei Wuhan and Jing Wuxia left, Wu Yueshui stood up and looked at the 9 people below. He said indifferently, follow me. After saying that, Wu Yueshui didn't say another word. He turned and walked toward the back of the hall. Behind the hall, at the end of the 9 winding corridors, A staircase to the heavens appeared. It soared into the clouds, and the end couldn't be seen. Go up. You have half a day. You should know the rules. When the sun sets, you must come out. Wuxia stopped and indifferently said. The 9 people responded in unison. Then, their silhouettes flashed as they rushed up the heavenly ladder. Above the pavilion within the pavilion was an illusory space with chaos surging. It was a strange and vast space-time. The 9 of them had just entered when they felt the laws of the surroundings change. Heavy sword pressure assaulted them from all directions, causing them to feel suffocated. Be careful. Muchanga looked at the youth beside him and warned him before walking forward. Not far away, the others also split up and walked in different directions. Your Highness, we should also split up. Otherwise, when we cultivate, our laws will clash and affect each other, said Ningchen to Prince Qi. Be careful. Lin Yuzhen hesitated for a moment before nodding her head and exhorting. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Ningchen smiled faintly and replied softly. There wasn't much time left, so the 2 of them didn't say anything more. They each chose a different direction and left. A moment later, the entrance to the sword domain closed. Boundless laws surged out, filling every corner. Chapter 842. In the Chaos Sword realm above the 9 winding corridors, the 9 mighty ones on the sword split up and headed deeper into the sword realm. The gate to the sword domain closed and boundless sword laws surged. An abnormally powerful pressure surged from all directions, making it increasingly difficult for the 9 of them to move forward. In the northwest direction, Lin Yuzhen was moving forward alone. She released her aura and became one with the heavens, comprehending the supreme will of the sword that was left in the sword domain. Suddenly, in the void ahead, sword light converged, and a beautiful figure in a purple dress appeared. An abnormally powerful sword pressure circulated, and even the sword domain laws were shaken away. Second Pavilion Master. Lin Yuzhen narrowed her eyes and said slowly. Wuxia walked out of the void and looked at Prince Qi, who was dressed as a man. With a wave of his right hand, an ancient sword that had been hidden in its scabbard appeared. Lin Yuzhen's vital energy surged and blocked the sword Qi. Her expression turned cold as she asked, Second Pavilion Master, what is the meaning of this? If you win, you can leave safely. If you lose, the phoenix cry will return. Wuxia said coldly, and the sunset divine sword was unsheathed. In an instant, the ice and snow melted at the peak of the 9 heavens, and the sun shone brightly. With danger looming over her, Lin Yuzhen no longer retreated. She clenched her left hand, and the phoenix cry was unsheathed. A strange light flourished, and the phoenix cry reached the 9 heavens. The 2 divine weapons collided with each other. With a loud clang, the shockwaves shook. Layer after layer of the void collapsed, and all things were alarmed. Wuxua's expression was ice-cold, but his moves were abnormally intense. The brilliance of the sunset sword was dazzling, and the terrifying temperature could burn the sky and boil the sea, making it unbearable. As for Lin Yuzhen, she held the cry of a phoenix in her hand and faced the battle head-on. Thunder surged around her body, and the demeanor of a king was clearly displayed. They were both at the pinnacle of the human world. Although she was a woman, her elegance was no less than that of a man. Her sword shocked the heavens and sank the earth. As the second Pavilion Master of Sword Pavilion, he actually used force to rob. Is this the way of Sword Pavilion? Lin Yuzhen's true essence rose unceasingly. Her fine black hair fluttered in the wind. The martial essence on top of her head soared. The winner takes all. This has been the case since ancient times. Sword Pavilion is no exception. Wuxia replied. The divine sun on the sunset sword rose, and the burning heavenly light descended. The 8 wastelands sank, and the surrounding heaven and earth turned into a sea of fire. The extreme essences on the swords collided, creating a terrifying scene as if the heavens were collapsing and the earth was caving in. The shockwaves rippled outwards. The 2 individuals both took half a step back, evenly matched. The wind and rain of the mountains and rivers will last for 100 generations. Knowing how strong her opponent was, Lin Yuzhen didn't want to fight for a long time. She used the wind and rain sword technique. Vast origin energy spread out, and a strange phenomenon appeared. The picturesque mountains and rivers didn't disappoint. The heaven-grade sword technique appeared. Moonless water, divine condensation. The divine sun brilliance on the sword changed from white to ink. Day and night were reversed. It was a godly technique. The moves of the sword scripture fused with the sunset divine sword. The might of the ultimate martial skill could destroy the heavens and the earth. Appearing in the world for the first time. In Moon Heavenly Sun. With the sun and moon in one body, the setting sun slashed down. The mountains and rivers were destroyed in an instant, and the hope became nothing. A pool of blood splashed onto the sword domain. Lin Yuzhen took several steps back and was injured for the first time. The shockwaves swept out. Receiving the shockwaves, Xue Wuyue's feet swayed and his breathing became unstable. With a difference of half a move, the outcome of the battle was tipped. The sword codex of the sword garret and the secret art of the Beiki royal family were determined in a single move. Most of the moves of the wind and rain sword of the first emperor of Beiki originated from the sword garret's sword art. How can you defeat me with this technique? Moonless water said coldly. His figure swept out, and the setting sun reflected on 1,000 rivers. His sword split open the world. The divine swords clashed, and a glaring cold star appeared. Her technique was defeated. Lin Yuzhen, who was injured, showed signs of weakness. Her every move lost its sharpness. Phoenix dance in the 9 heavens. Her moves were restrained. Lin Yuzhen changed her sword style. She abandoned the secret art of Beiki, and used the phoenix dance on her sword. Oh! With a soft sound of surprise, Moonless Water's cold eyes flashed with surprise. She could react so quickly. The name of Prince Qi was indeed well-deserved. The battle resumed with endless sharpness. The battle was white-hot. The setting sun shone on the sea of fire, and the phoenix danced under the heavens. Slash. The blade of the sword cut through her clothes, and blood splattered. The two swords clashed. Lin Yuzhen, who was injured, could not concentrate her energy and was injured again. Lin Yuzhen lost one move, and then another. When Lin Yuzhen's vital energy was exhausted, Moonless Water's sword became fiercer and more ruthless. You've gone too far. With her injuries worsening, Lin Yuzhen's face flashed with anger. She shouted, and her vital energy rushed to the sky. The crown on her head shattered, and her long hair danced wildly. Lin Yuzhen's face changed in an instant. Her handsomeness was slightly reduced, and she became more beautiful. Lin Yuzhen took a step forward, and the phoenix cry condensed, splitting the sky and the sea. With a loud bang, the setting sun met her. The two swords clashed, and the chaos dispersed. The battle was split into two. The dripping red blood was so dazzling. Moonless Water's right hand that was holding the sword dripped with blood. It was the first time he was injured since the battle. While the two were fighting, Mei Wuhan stood quietly in the illusory space at the highest level of the pavilion. In front of him, a sky curtain appeared, showing the battle of the Chaos Sword Realm. Second sister, don't let me down. After a long time, Mei Wuhan spoke with an indifferent expression. At this moment, in the Water Moon Hall not far away, Wuxia, who had something to attend to, stepped in. When he realized that Moonless Water was not in the hall, his face changed. Second sister. Wuxia's figure flashed. He flew out of the Water Moon Hall, and rushed toward the 9 winding corridors in the distance. After a few breaths, Wuxia appeared above the 9 winding corridors in the Chaos Sword Realm. He looked at the closed door of the Sword Realm, and his face, which was covered by a veil, changed several times. The Chaos Sword Realm was in a frenzy. Prince Qi and Moonless Water's battle was becoming more and more intense. Blood splattered from time to time, adding to the slaughter. The two of them had unleashed their full power, and every move they made had the power to destroy the world. Even though the Sword Realm was suppressed by the laws, it still showed signs of instability. All the experts in the Sword Realm sensed something, and they looked toward the northwest. Their expressions changed. Not good. In the distance, Ning Chen's expression froze. He stepped forward and transformed into a phoenix, flying toward the battle. At the same time, outside the Sword Realm, Wuhan wanted to reopen the Sword Realm. Suddenly, a deep red sword light pierced through the sky, blocking his path. Big sister. Seeing the divine sword blocking his path, Jing Wuhan's expression changed once more. He turned to look at the highest floor of the pavilion, shock in his eyes. This battle had affected many sides. In the center of the battle, Moonless Water sensed that someone was coming from the distance. His eyes turned cold, and the sunset sword shone with dazzling light. Lin Yuzhen did not dodge. She faced it head-on, returning to her female form. She unleashed all her energy, and her moves were filled with divine might. Rumbling sounds echoed throughout the sword realm. Swordsmen, kings, and only one at the peak. They were all dyed in a blinding vermilion. In the distance, the red light flew faster and faster. The laws of the sword realm sensed something and condensed into a massive dragon gate. It was as heavy as a mountain, and it pressed down on the phoenix. 10 breaths later, the red-clothed figure arrived. Genesis Supreme unsheathed his sword and shook the sunset sword. With a heaven-shaking boom, the heavens and earth split apart. Moonless Water stabilized himself and looked at the red-clothed figure in front of him, his expression turning even colder. A moment later, the dragon gate pressed down, suppressing the phoenix that had once defied the heavens. Chapter 843. In the primal chaos sword domain, 2 strong cultivators were fighting. Hong Yi appeared and stopped the battle with a single sword strike. Knowing destiny made a move. Heaven and earth sensed it, and the dragon gate appeared and pressed down. Ningchen's body moved. He rushed up to the 9 heavens and swung his sword to block the dragon gate that was descending from the sky. With a rumble, heaven and earth shook. Above the dragon gate, the symbol civilization was destroyed. A moment later, it returned to normal and continued to suppress. When Lin Yuzhen saw this, she ignored her injuries and took a step forward. She stood in the air and waved her phoenix cry to help Lin Yuzhen resist the might of the dragon gate. Blood splattered and dyed her hair red. Lin Yuzhen, who was already injured, suffered a backlash from the dragon's gate's laws. She staggered and nearly fell. Not too far away, Shui Wuyue frowned. His figure flickered as he appeared in the air, carrying the heavily injured Prince Qi with him. Others are not allowed to interfere with the dragon's gate's calamity. If you don't want to be suppressed, then don't seek your own death. Wuyue Shui warned coldly. He looked away and didn't say anything else. Above the 9 heavens, thunder rumbled and lightning flashed. The dragon gate descended into the world. An incomparably majestic pressure swept up the wind and clouds, suppressing the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Below, Ningchen's phoenix essence soared to the extreme. His sword split open the 9 heavens as he resisted the dragon's gate tribulation. The rules of the dragon's gate fell one after another, binding the knowing destiny body. Those who defied the natural order were not tolerated by the way of heaven. Demon body. With an angry shout, Ningchen's demonic aura surged. A moment later, a black-clothed figure appeared. Scarlet sword was in his hand, and the demon cultivator's demon sword was extremely ferocious. Joining hands, he once again resisted the heavenly Tao. The phoenix fire demonic energy surged like waves. The Taoist and demon dual swords defied the heavens. Boom. The battle between the celestials and the celestials raged. The fallen dragon's gate sank rapidly, continuously devouring the phoenix demon's energy. In Moon Heavenly Sun. At this moment, the phoenix and demon bodies danced on the sword. A black moon and a white sun appeared and merged into one. It was actually a move from the sword canon. In the sword domain, the precepts on the swords left by generations of sword pavilion masters vibrated and gathered rapidly from all directions, echoing the moves of the sword codex. 3,000 meters away, Shui Wuyue's pupil shrank. His icy expression finally changed. How could this be? Didn't he only stay in the sword cavern for half a day? He's actually able to use the moves of the sword scriptures? Above the void, the ultimate move of the Swordsmanship Codex appeared. The sword domain was shaken. Endless precepts gathered, aiding the knowing destiny state. The black moon and the white sun condensed on the dual swords. One sword went against the sky, resisting the heavenly punishment. The sword slashed the dragon gate, and an intense collision resounded through the 9 heavens. The shockwaves from the collision caused both of them to suffer heavy injuries. Blood dyed the sky. At the same time, cracks appeared on the fallen dragon gate, crisscrossing and spreading across half of the dragon gate. In the blink of an eye, with a loud bang, 30% of the dragon gate shattered. The power of laws dissipated, and the pressure decreased. In the next moment, the dragon gate rumbled and gradually merged into heaven and earth, disappearing from sight. In the void, the demonic cultivator, whose body had been greatly exhausted, dissipated and merged back into the phoenix body. As Ning Chen's figure landed on the ground, he staggered and vomited a mouthful of blood, barely managing to stabilize himself. 1,000 feet away, Lin Yuzhen's figure flashed. She took a step forward and supported him. She asked with concern, "How are you?" "It's fine." Ning Chen stretched out his hand and wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth. He looked a little tired as he said, "After destroying 30% of the dragon gate, I can use more of my cultivation body. This is a good thing." "Aren't you being too optimistic?" As he spoke, not far away, Shui Wuyue walked over and said coldly, "The dragon gate is formed by the laws of heaven and earth. It will gradually recover. Perhaps the next time it appears, it will be completely restored." Seeing the newcomer, Lin Yuzhen's eyes narrowed. She stood in front of him and said coldly, "Second Pavilion Master, do you still want to fight?" Shui Wuyue looked in the direction of the sword domain's gate. After a while he shook his head and said, "No, I can take back the Phoenix Cry sword anytime. It doesn't have to be today." Speaking up to this point, Shui Wuyue looked over at the red-clothed young man in front of him and said indifferently, "Ninth son of Mo sect, I didn't expect you to have comprehended the sword canon to this extent in just half a day. However, this is a disaster for you, not a blessing." At this point, Shui Wuyue did not say anything else and turned to leave. Ning Chen frowned and looked at the former's back view. A dignified look flashed in his eyes. "Brother Ning, did you notice that this second pavilion master seems to be hiding something?" Lin Yuzhen said softly, "Just now, I was attacked by the dragon gate." She could have taken the opportunity to snatch the sword, but she did not do so. Instead, she took me away. "It's difficult to know a person's heart from their face," Ning Chen replied. "People who seem kind sometimes are the most scheming, and people who seem ruthless sometimes are the most emotional." There are too many things that are hard to understand in this sword pavilion. We don't need to know so much. We just need to be careful and be on guard against dangers that may appear at any time. Lin Yuzhen nodded and said, "Brother Ning is right." Outside the sword domain's gate, the divine sword was blocking the way. Jing Wuxia did not dare to barge in, and could only wait anxiously. At this moment, a rumbling sound could be heard. The gate of the sword domain opened, and a beautiful figure in a purple dress walked out. She looked at the person in front of the gate and said indifferently, "Let's go back." "Second sister." Jing Wuxia walked forward and said worriedly, "Did you do anything?" "What?" Shui Wuyue stopped and looked at Jing Wuxia. He said calmly, "You're not worried about second sister's safety. Instead, you're more worried about those outsiders?" "Of course not." Jing Wuxia shook his head and said, "I know second sister's strength very well. They can't hurt second sister." "Not necessarily," Shui Wuyue replied and continued to walk forward. He said, "There are at least 3 people inside who can pose a threat to me, including the 2 people you're worried about. All right, don't ask about things you shouldn't ask. Come back with me." Jing Wuxia nodded worriedly and followed. In the sword domain, after an earth-shattering battle, the world shook for a long time. Outside the sword domain, the blazing sun moved westward. Half a day gradually passed. In front of the Water Moon Hall, Shui Wuyue waved his hand. Within the sword domain, the wind and clouds swirled and the power of the laws changed. The gate opened and sent everyone out one by one. Everyone rushed down the 9 winding corridors. Mu Chang'e walked forward and looked at the injured Ning Chen. He frowned and asked, "How are you?" "It's nothing serious." Ning Chen replied with a smile on his face. Mu Chang'e nodded and warned, "Be careful." I saw your dragon gate just now. If it doesn't work this time, there will be a next time. If it doesn't work the next time, there will be a next time. There will be a day when you will completely destroy it. Understood. Ningchen nodded and said, seeing your honorable sword, don't worry. After this, I have more or less gained some experience. The next time I attack, I won't be in such a sorry state like today. I don't have to worry about your words. Muchanga replied and walked forward. He transmitted his voice, prepare for tomorrow's sword match. Be careful of the first pavilion master. She gives me the feeling that she is the most dangerous person in the sword pavilion. Okay. Ningchen replied. I will be careful. Muchanga walked away. Lin Yuzhen looked at his back and said, Brother Ning, how confident are you in tomorrow's match? First seat? Ning Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. It depends on the rules. I have a 50% chance of winning. Life or death, I have a 100% chance. Chapter 844. In the starry sky, a majestic sword pavilion stood on a floating continent. Its inheritance had been passed down for tens of thousands of years. The sun rose in the sword pavilion. The final round of the everlasting sword banquet was about to begin. The top 10 would compete with their swords to become the champion. The top 10 had arrived, and everyone was bearing witness to it. One by one, the experts arrived and took their seats. Sword Pavilion's 3 pavilion masters appeared and sat down in front of the main seat. Thank you all for coming to witness the final battle for the champion of the everlasting sword banquet. Mei Wuhan looked at the crowd and smiled. The rules this time are very simple. We will draw lots to determine the order of the battles, and the competition will stop at a certain point. We can't harm each other. Ningchen sighed. Comparing swords and moves really couldn't be considered his strong point. His sword was more suitable for killing people. Come, Mei Wuhan said. As soon as he finished speaking, a sword attendant walked forward. There were 10 jade slips on a wooden tray in his hand, and each of them had 10 different numbers carved on them. To be fair, second sister, you'll be the last to draw. Mei Wuhan looked at the purple-clothed woman beside him and smiled. Wu Yueshui nodded. There was no change in her ice-cold expression. Everyone, there are 10 different numbers engraved on the jade slips. Those who draw adjacent numbers, such as first and second, third and fourth, will fight separately, explained Mei Wuhan. The 9 people nodded and sat down. Sword God Baiyu raised his hand and took a jade slip. Next, the Zhurong family's woman in red, Lin Yuzhen, and the others also drew jade slips in order to determine the order of the first round. 10. Ningchen looked at the numbers on the jade slip and narrowed his eyes. It seemed this was the last group. The number didn't mean anything to him. If he wanted to become the champion of the everlasting sword banquet, he had to defeat all his opponents. Friends who drew numbers 1 and 2, please come, said Mei Wuhan with a smile. As he spoke, Moonless Shui stood up from his seat on the right and walked down the stage. Everyone was startled, but they soon recovered and revealed strange expressions. Sword Pavilion's second pavilion master had actually come out in the first round. During the banquet, among the 9 people, a man in blue clothes sighed softly and stood up to attend. Are you ready? I'm about to begin. Wu Yueshui reminded him. She waved her hand and the sunset glow appeared. The divine sun rose and the divine sword floated in it. The sword was not out of its scabbard, but the sword pressure swept out in all directions. The blue-robed man focused. He clenched his right hand, and a dark blue divine weapon appeared. The sword was unsheathed, and it froze the world. What a pity! On the main seat, Mei Wuhan sighed with emotion. The result was already decided. Before he finished speaking, Shui Wuyue gripped his sword and unsheathed it. In an instant, sunset glow was unsheathed. The divine sun illuminated the world, melting ice and snow. In that instant, snowflakes and flowers of blood blossomed in the world. The sunset returned to its scabbard. The battle was over. With a muffled groan, blood dyed the air. The blue-robed man knelt down. A sword pierced through his chest, and blood splashed out. Wuyue water wins. Mei Wuhan spoke, announcing the result. He glanced at the heavily injured blue-robed young man below as a bright light flashed in his eyes. Initially, he could have gone even further, but sadly, he encountered his second sister. Cultivation techniques and the attributes of divine weapons countered each other. This person had no chance of winning at all, defeating his opponent in a single move. Everyone was shocked. When they recovered from their shock, disbelief filled their faces. To be able to pass the Sword Pavilion's 2 trials and advance to the final round, none of them were simple. They never imagined that they would be defeated in a single move by the Sword Pavilion's 2nd Pavilion Master. "Men, bring Reverend Yu away to treat his injuries," ordered Mei Wuhan. "Yes." 2 sword attendants walked out and respectfully accepted the order. They immediately went forward to support the heavily injured blue-robed man, and left the hall together. "Brother Ning, it's my turn," Lin Yuzhen softly said. She stood up and walked to the front of the table. Not far away, a swordsman from the All-Heaven Starfield also walked out. His powerful aura was faintly discernible. His cultivation was at the late stage of the true realm. "I am Lin Yuzhen. Please." "Sang Huai," the swordsman responded. After bowing, he waved his hand and a sword appeared in his hand. Lin Yuzhen raised her hand, and a phoenix cry flew out. With a clang, it blocked the incoming attack. The 2 swords clashed, and cold stars filled the eyes. In the banquet, the sword experts all understood what was going on. The outcome of this battle would not be decided too quickly. However, it was clear who was stronger and who was weaker. Queen Qi Lin Yuzhen was a famous expert in the starry sky. Under the 4th level of cultivation, she rarely met a match. Although this swordsman called Sang Huai was powerful, it would still be difficult for him to shake the title of Queen Qi. In the blink of an eye, the battle had already gone over 10 moves. Sword light dazzled the eyes. The battle of the peak of the sword was pleasing to the eyes. Amen? Suddenly Lin Yuzhen, who originally held a slight advantage, forcibly condensed her body. She gave up on her conservative strategy and unleashed all of her power, wanting to end the battle quickly. Seeing this, Sang Huai's eyes shone brightly. He saw a trace of an opportunity to turn the situation around. He also unleashed his cultivation. His sword split apart, and divine light illuminated the world. The 2 swords clashed, and with a loud explosion the 2 separated. They both took several steps back. Their bodies dyed with blood. Sang Huai knelt on the ground with his sword propped against the ground. Blood continuously flowed from his mouth. He had lost by half a move. Ugh. On the other side, a sword wound appeared on Lin Yuzhen's left shoulder. Blood spurted out. She staggered and was heavily injured again. It was an expected result and an unexpected process. After they sat down, the experts from the various starfields revealed puzzled expressions. They did not understand the reason. Queen Qi was clearly able to defeat this swordsman from the All-Heaven Starfield with a stable strategy. Why would she be so anxious and use such an intense method? The battle ended. During the banquet, there was a flash of red. Ning Chen entered the battle and helped the injured Lin Yuzhen. He condensed his phoenix essence and sealed her injuries. "How are you feeling?" Ning Chen asked with a grave expression. "I'm fine," Lin Yuzhen replied with a forced smile. On the main seat, light flashed through Shui Wuyue's eyes. It would appear that Queen Qi's injuries yesterday were truly not light. That was why she was unwilling to fight for a long time, and decided to end the battle quickly. "Queen Qi has won this battle. Your Highness, congratulations." Mei Wuhan stood up and said with a smile. Lin Yuzhen nodded her head and returned to her seat with the support of the man beside her. After the 2 battles, Shui Wuyue and Lin Yuzhen both entered the next round. The results were not unexpected. The strong won. This was an undeniable truth. Next, Sword God Baiyu and Mu Chang'e defeated their opponents within 100 exchanges. The only battle that had yet to begin was between Ning Chen and the red-clothed woman from the Zhurong family. During the banquet, Ning Chen stood up. The red-clothed woman also stood up and walked to the front of the banquet. "I am Ning Chen. Lady, please show me your skills." "The current generation Zhurong, please." Now that the etiquette was over, the battle was about to begin. The atmosphere in the palace suddenly became quiet. Everyone focused. earnestly waiting for the battle to begin. One was the ninth son of Mo Gate, whose name shook the starry sky, and the other was the descendant of the Zhurong family that had not appeared in 10,000 years. The result of this battle was hard to predict. Ah! With a light shout, Ning Chen's body glowed with red light. Taisher appeared and his sword technique reappeared. Ruohuo, raise your sword. As the flames of battle descended, the red-clothed woman opened her mouth. In an instant, flames soared into the sky. It was as if a fiery divine sword had appeared. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.